All right. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. It is currently 11:44 a.m. And of course, today's date is the 31st of July 2025, the last day of July. How are you guys doing? Welcome back to the live show. Yes, it is your boy Genesis, and you are currently tuned into the Genesis show. And with that being said, don't forget. Okay, I got a new hat today. Okay, I literally picked this up. Where did I? I got this from Burlington. Yeah. So I went to get my daughter some shoes, and I saw this. I'm like, oh, I like this. I love this. All right. With that being said, God is the greatest. Okay, God is the greatest. Don't forget that God is the greatest, and America is blessed by God. All right. So it doesn't matter if you are a Democrat or a Republican. The number one thing is you love the United States, you are American, and you support the United States. That is what matters. All right. That is what matters. And you support unity as well. Okay. You love unity. You promote unity. So you can enjoy the show if that's you. All right. All right. With that being said, I hope you're having a wonderful day. It is Thursday. All right. Tomorrow is Friday. A lot of people are usually happy during this time. Okay. A lot of people are usually happy during this time. So, yes. Let me see. Right. So, a lot of people are usually happy towards the end of the week. So, you can have your rest during the weekend. All right. So, this right here is about a 6 days ago hearing by the Democrat and the Republicans. They held a committee hearing concerning the now appointed DC judge, Janine Pirro. But we're going to run this back for everybody who didn't watch it or who missed it. All right. We're going to check it out right here. So be nice in the comment section. Be nice. All right. Be nice. All right. With that being said, enjoy the show, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.
Siebert and Nicholas Chase and Daniel Rosen. That's all for U.S. attorneys. I think they're highly qualified nominees. Two of these nominees have received blue slips from 4 Democratic senators. So I thank Senator Klobuchar, Senator Smith, Kaine, and Warner for working to select qualified nominees. Their efforts are a testament to the way this process should work. I look forward to supporting them and encourage my colleagues to do the same. We'll also have the following 3 bills listed to be voted on. 1023, the Trace Act. 1029, the Opioid Overdose Data Collection Enhancement Act. And thirdly, the acronym that we call the Child Act of 2025. The 3 bills are part of a bipartisan effort tackling crime and protecting vulnerable populations. Each equips law enforcement and other decision makers with critical information either about the last known locations for missing persons, hotspots for drug overdoses, or criminal background of contractors responsible for taking care of children. I want to thank Ranking Member Durbin and his entire staff for working with me to put together this agenda. I'd also like to thank the members of the committee for collaborating on these public safety bills. Before we get to the agenda, I'd like to say a few words about last week's meeting and to share my perspective. At the beginning of last week's markup, I announced, and I quote myself, "If we haven't voted before 10:30, I'll plan to call to the vote on all nominations at that time. If people wish to speak after that time, I will stay as long as needed for their remarks." End of my quote from last week. I set this time for last week's vote because of conflicts, including a markup in another very important committee. I think for most people that was the Appropriations Committee. My intention was to allow all of my colleagues to give their remarks either before the vote or after the vote. So then you can see why I promised at the very beginning of the meeting to stay as long as necessary so everyone, both Republicans and Democrats, could be heard on the nominations. My colleagues didn't take me up on that offer. Instead, I was surprised with a motion that was not on the agenda and not previewed in advance of the meeting. And when I tried to call the vote, some of my colleagues accused me of not allowing them to speak, and they left the room instead of allowing the vote to proceed and then taking as much time as they needed afterwards, as I said I promised them I'd do, to say everything that they wanted to say on the nominees. This may have been the result of miscommunicated intentions between our sides, but this isn't a good way for the committee to operate, and it's now how I like to have things work in this committee. Since last week's meeting, my staff has had a productive conversation with the Democratic staff. We've heard each other's concerns, and I believe we both agree that we want the committee to run well, and that's definitely better than last week. I think we can work together to make sure this happens. For those who haven't read them, under the Senate rules, the chairman can end debate with a majority vote of a majority president in the committee. This has been used by chairmen of both sides on multiple occasions and is always controversial when that vote would be put forth. We can argue about whether this instance or that instance was justified or not, but I don't think that that would be productive. It's unsurprising that Republicans and Democrats both tend to think that in our separate ways that we're justified when our side takes that procedure of forcing a vote. The important point is, I agree this shouldn't be a common practice, and I don't intend to use it unless the consideration of the nominee is being unfairly obstructed. So, moving forward, I'll work with the ranking member to ensure that we allocate sufficient time for debate. I'll ask the ranking member to work with me to ensure that we can navigate the Senate calendar and the Senate 2-hour rule to ensure that we can vote on nominees when they're on the agenda. As chairman, I try to be fair to all members of the committee, even during controversial nominations. And we have plenty of them and have had plenty of them as well. In February, during a markup on Director Patel of the FBI, I held the meeting open and sat here in silence for an extended period of time as a courtesy as an example to Senator Schiff so that he could arrive in time to speak in the opposition to the nomination. I look forward to working with the ranking member and my colleagues to ensure that we can allow for robust debate in committee while also ensuring nominees receive a vote when they're ready for consideration by the committee. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to address your comments in a moment, but I ask the leave of the committee for a point of personal privilege. I want to acknowledge a member of my staff who's leaving. Yashi Gunawardena has served on my staff for over 4 years, personal office and committee, worn many hats, including serving as a professional staff member and nominations clerk. She's excelled in every role. Early on in her time with us, Yashi worked on Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation hearing. If you're a federal judge who's come before us in the past year, it's safe to say that Yashi played a key.
Shout out to Dr. Luke the GOAT. Thank you for the super chat. Shout out to Dr. Luke the GOAT for sure. It says, Genesis, I appreciate you. You are doing a great job. Shout out to Dr. Luke the GOAT. Thank you so much, the GOAT. Here we go.
Role in your confirmation. She also works on protecting reproductive rights, an issue she's passionate about. Although she's leaving D.C., she isn't going too far. Next month, she'll begin law school at the University of Virginia. Please join me in thanking Yashi for her service to the committee. Thanks, Mr. Chairman, for your statement at the outset of this hearing as well about last week's markup. We were surprised by the amount of time we were given to discuss the 10 nominees. I remember expressly what you did say, that you wanted to call the roll at 10:30. You made that point early on. I didn't know if that was a hard and fast rule, but you did say it. I will acknowledge that point. I want to address the claim that this was based on precedent. The precedent for cutting off debate and overriding committee rules by a majority was established by 3 Republican chairmen, Chairman Hatch, who in 2003 cut off debate on 2 judicial nominees, yourself in 2018, cutting off the debate on Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court, Chairman Graham, who in 2019 cut off debate on a partisan immigration bill, and 2020 cut off debate on Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. I believe what happened last week was different from what I did in 2023 when I cut off debate on 2 district court nominees. In that case, the nominees were on the markup for the 4th time. They had already had nearly 2 hours of debate on the nominees, and every member of the committee had already had an opportunity to speak. In fact, we'd already voted on the nominees, and the only reason we came back was one of our members from Minnesota stepped off the floor at an inopportune moment and then came back on the floor and tried to register her vote in person, and we weren't certain that that would stand up to the test of whether it was a valid roll call, and we started over for another go-around. During my 4 years as chair of this committee, I provided members on both sides of the aisle with ample time to debate before calling votes. The bottom line is this. The Senate parliamentarian has been clear that a chairman can override committee rules by a vote of the majority of the committee. Both Republican and Democratic chairs have done that in the past. I think each of us would say that we did not relish it, but this committee has a long tradition of robust debate, and I especially appreciate your comments about trying to recognize that precedent in your own administration as chairman. I understand our staffs have sat down in a peaceful way and talked this over, and I'm looking forward to respecting the fact that we all have busy schedules, that we still have ample time to debate these lifetime appointments, because that's an important part of our responsibility. I thank you. I'm going to withhold my statement beyond that point, and so that we can move on.
Now, if I could explain proceeding today, by agreement with the minority, we'll first voice vote all U.S. attorneys except for Pirro, and we'll do that en bloc. After a voice vote, I'll open the floor for debate on the nomination of Jeanine Pirro.
Mr. Chairman?
Before her roll call vote. After the Pirro vote, we'll proceed to the bills. So we'll now voice.
Mr. Chairman?
May I say something about the comments of the ranker and the chair on that matter of last week?
I hope you can do it quickly. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, both you and the ranking member said that the cutting off of debate had been done a handful of times. It was not relished by either the majority, when it was a Republican majority or Democratic majority. But the sentence that was said by both you and the ranking member was that you can end debate with a majority vote. I think what I said to you in a private conversation that I appreciate, and what I want to just say here, is that's not how it was done last week. We didn't have a vote. And that's what I was asking for time and time again during that episode. So clearly, I know the rules. Clearly, I've checked with the parliamentarian. We can override the rules of the committee, but there should be a vote. You began to call a vote, but then you were cut off by staff, and then we pushed the vote through. And the reason why it upsets me so much is because the debate was on a judge for my state on the Third Circuit. We've created a climate in this country that is deepening and deepening a reflexive tribalism where people aren't interested in listening to the facts anymore, listening to each other. Tribalism kills curiosity. It kills the will to listen with an open heart or open mind to your opposition, even if you disagree with them or think you'll disagree with them. That's something that this committee, I think, needs to foster. I'm very troubled this last month because I've seen people who want to come forward with things on this nominee, but they are so terrified of being doxxed or targeted or threatened or worse. The rising tide of hate, both of us on both of our parties have seen this. Judges in my district that are taking extra steps to protect themselves. The climate is getting so bad. I want to say to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that this culture of fear is affecting our ability to deliberate and do our job. A whistleblower came here to this committee with information that was disregarded. There is another person that's come forward to me through their attorneys. And so I just ask my colleagues, if you believe that, do you believe that a nominee who is not truthful under oath before this committee should not be confirmed? Do you believe that a nominee that comes before this committee that is not forthcoming and truthful should be confirmed? Do you believe that understanding the intent of a question requires a nominee to answer it honestly and not try to evade the question because they understand the intent of the question? If you believe these things, and since we can't have debate here, but before this person comes to the floor, on the record, I want to invite people to come to talk to me, and I will provide you with substantive information that should have been discussed in this hearing. Clearly is not. Clearly we can't have debate, but we have substantive information relevant to the truthfulness of this nominee, and I'm hoping more of my colleagues in this climate of fear and intimidation and rushed votes would want to know the truth before the final vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to respond to you. You and I had a private conversation, and I'm not going to say anything that you said, but it was a fruitful conversation as far as I'm concerned after our last meeting. But remember, one of the things that I told you was that we had this conflict with other committees. And remember that I told you that you got to have 100 senators together to solve this country's problems. Now, there's enough work for an individual senator to do 7 days a week if he wants to. But you're never going to solve this country's problems just working 2.5 days a week like we did under Schumer and now under Thune. We got to get this back on a 5-day work week, Monday through Friday, like it was the first 25 years I served in the United States Senate. We'd start at 10 on Monday and go to 4 on Friday. And then you don't have to have all of these meetings coming on a Thursday afternoon or a Thursday morning because you got more days to do it. I always had an agreement with Senator Hatch when he was chairman of the Judiciary Committee or chairman of the Finance Committee, and I was chairman of this committee, that we wouldn't be having our meetings on the same day because we worked it out. Now, that was still a very short week, But if we'd put in more time here, we wouldn't have to have these meetings all going at the same time. So why don't you talk to Schumer and I'll talk to Thune about working a 5-day week?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, I've only had 14 years here. You were one of the best people I've had to work with over those 14 years, because as I said, as last week's proceedings were going on, I feel like I know you, and I appreciate what you said, and I actually agree with you 100%, and I especially like when Chuck Grassley gets cantankerous, because that's the best Chuck Grassley. So I just want to say I'm not arguing with any of that, and I appreciate it. I'm just simply saying that I feel like it's killing me that on this nominee, there is evidence that the nominee misled the committee, and I have not even gotten a chance for my colleagues to listen to the evidence, and that's what frustrates me. But sir, I cannot tell you, I appreciated our private conversation and the 14 years we've had of working together, and I'm hoping that we can do a better job moving forward.
Now, I'm hoping that we can move the way I suggested. We'll let anybody debate all they want to about Jeanine Pirro, but we'd now move to en bloc votes by voice on Kurt Alme, Nicholas Chase, Leslie Wood Murphy, Daniel Rosen, Eric Siebert, and Kurt Wall. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. No. These people will be reported.
Mr. Chairman, can I be recorded no on all of these? I'd like to be recorded no.
I'd like to be recorded as well as a no.
I heard Booker. I hear from.
I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on Kurt Alme,
Who was
Leslie
the
Murphy,
third one?
and Kurt Wall, and Nicholas Chase.
Oh, just on specific ones?
Yes.
Booker's on all of them, right?
And I would like to be recorded as no on all.
On all of them, okay. And you?
I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on Kurt Alme, Leslie Murphy, Kurt Wall, and Nicholas Chase.
Okay,
And I wanted to give a brief statement on my nominee.
okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
Mr. Chairman,
Then we'll
if I
go
could
to-
on the recorded vote, unless this is on the,
on all of them, Senator Schiff?
no, on individual ones, if this is the
Okay.
appropriate time, or after Senator Klobuchar.
Okay. I'm just going to say that we're going to debate it for too long than I take. Both Senator Smith and I have submitted our blue slips on Daniel Rosen. He was recommended by a nominations committee formed by Congressman Emmer, composed of attorneys, former judges in our state, and he came highly recommended by that committee. He's a Navy veteran, a graduate of the University of Minnesota Law School. He has practiced law in our state for over 30 years. He's been an active member of our legal community and has an extensive pro bono practice. The U.S. Attorney's Office in our state has been one of the premier U.S. Attorney's Office in the country, second biggest white-collar case in the country they prosecuted. They have been instrumental in combating violent crime, dismantling street gangs, combating human trafficking, taking fentanyl off our streets, and the office is currently leading the effort to bring the assassin in the horrific shootings, the murders of my friend, the state legislature, to justice. Importantly, Mr. Rosen has committed to us that he will continue the office's tradition of excellence.
Now we'll go to debate on Pirro. Who wants to be?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, just a minute. Senator Schiff, you wanted to express a vote on.
yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to be recorded as a no on Kurt Alme, a no on Nicholas Chase, a no on Leslie Murphy, and a no on Kurt Wall.
Okay, thank you. You'll be recorded.
Thank you.
I'm going to recognize, you're on Pirro, right? Yeah,
I am.
You go ahead.
What,
Senator.
anybody else seek recognition on that previous roll call vote? I guess
No,
no.
he wanted to speak on Pirro.
Okay. Well, Mr.
DC calls on you to reject Janine Pirro. Nobody in this body is elected to represent the District of Columbia. None of you are representing district's residents, 700,000 people in the District of Columbia.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Okay, go ahead, Senator Durbin.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Pirro is the latest Trump loyalist to be nominated to the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia following Ed Martin's withdrawal. Ms. Pirro has demonstrated for decades that she prioritizes her relationship with Donald Trump, now president, over almost anything else. She initially condemned the January 6 rioters and their attack on the Capitol and then did an about-face. In January 2025, she called January 6 rioters, quote, hostages, the rioters, hostages. She also complained about a 22-year sentence imposed on Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio, arguing he should not be subject to such a long prison term. Notably, a judge found that Tarrio's actions led to, quote, 200 men amped up for battle encircling the Capitol. After his release, Tarrio said, quote, success is going to be retribution. He then posted a video of himself stalking officers who defended the Capitol on January 6th. Ms. Pirro has also argued that prosecutors handling January 6 cases should be prosecuted themselves. And now she's nominated to lead the office where many of those prosecutors, if they haven't been fired by Emile Bove, will still work. When asked whether January 6 rioters were convicted of violent assaults on police officers should have been given full and unconditional pardon by President Trump, Ms. Pirro implausibly claimed, and quote, she was not aware that the rioters who were convicted of violent assaults were given full and unconditional pardons. They were. The facts show otherwise. At least 169 January 6 rioters were convicted of assaulting police officers. So here she is, defending the rioters who attacked the police, who protected all of us today to come to this building and meet peaceably. And here she is saying that those who were attacking the police were hostages and mistreated. And she apparently favors the policy of firing the prosecutors who went after the rioters. The prosecutors who went after the rioters for attacking the police. When I met with her last week, I asked if she always accepted the assignments given her by supervisors when she was an assistant district attorney. As expected, she said yes. But when I asked her whether it was appropriate to terminate prosecutors in her office,
Shout out to Dr. Luke, the GOAT. Dr. Luke, the GOAT. Thank you for the super chat, as always. Dr. Luke says, beautiful people like Jet and others are what make coming back to this channel an easy decision. Genesis attracts some of the best. Thank you, Dr. Luke, and shout out to MVP Jet for sure. God bless you, Dr. Luke the GOAT. Yes, here we go.
for their work on January 6, she refused to answer. She also claimed she hadn't fired anybody. Well, just weeks ago, since Ms. Pirro became interim U.S. Attorney, 3 career prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office, including the leader of the Capitol Siege section, were fired by the Justice Department. It is hard to believe that Ms. Pirro had no knowledge of these terminations. I'm also concerned that she's willing to ignore the Constitution when justifying the unlawful actions of the president. When discussing the administration's deporting immigrants without due process, she said, quote, Fifth Amendment says nothing about illegals, so cut the crap, unquote. As Ms. Pirro knows full well, the Fifth Amendment applies to everyone present in the United States when it demands, and I quote, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. Ms. Pirro's devotion to the president also extends to perpetuating the big lie. She still won't answer the question, who won the 2020 election? With her large platform on the mothership, Fox News, she repeated falsehoods about the 2020 election, leading to Fox News paying nearly $800 million to settle defamation claims brought by Dominion Voting Systems. For example, it was Ms. Pirro who falsely claimed that Dominion Voting Systems, quote, started in Venezuela with Cuban money, that the company had software backdoor to flip votes around. Ms. Pirro's fealty to the president extends to attacking lawmakers who are not fully in line with the MAGA agenda, including many members on both sides of the aisle. Her record makes it clear that she'll prioritize President Trump's MAGA agenda, not the rule of law nor the Constitution. Trump is already using the Justice Department to protect his allies and go after his enemies, and Ms. Pirro will be willing accomplice in weaponizing the justice system. I will give her credit. She asked for an appointment to come and see me. She had to know my predilections toward her nomination. And we did meet, and I credit her with that. I suspect she's going to be approved by this committee. I will try to work with her. She has many positive things in her background, but the particular elements that I just laid out cannot be explained, and I don't believe justify her having this important position. So I'm going to vote against her nomination.
Before I call on Senator Coons, I'm going to put a statement in the record, my own statement in the record. So without objection, it happens to be in support of Pirro. Senator Coons?
Senator Coons was fine with this. I'm just going to put my statements on the record as well for my reasons to objecting to Jeanine Pirro, as well as my statement I was unable to make on Emile Bove last week.
Okay, thank you. Senator Coons.
Mr. Chairman, I defer to Senator Hirono and would then like to make my statement about
Okay, Senator Hirono.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and I thank Senator Coons for the courtesy of allowing me to go first. My concerns with Ms. Pirro's nomination are numerous. Ms. Pirro is a Fox News media personality. She does not have the professional qualifications or the prosecutorial ethics to serve as a U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. In fact, she seems to have no concept of ethics at all. For starters, she perpetuated misinformation and lies about the 2020 presidential election. She was also formerly the subject of a federal investigation into illegal wiretapping over her attempts to get a former police commissioner to bug her then husband's boat to catch him cheating. Pretty bizarre. Later, Ms. Pirro personally lobbied President Trump to pardon her ex-husband for his multiple convictions of tax fraud and tax evasion, and he did so. This is a man who was federally investigated for having leaked information from the prosecutor's office Ms. Pirro led to the mob. If Ms. Pirro is confirmed as the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, she will prioritize politics over justice for the people. This is not someone who cares about crimes of sexual assault and sexual harassment. In fact, she's criticized me for questioning nominees about sexual misconduct, stating that it's an issue that, quote, doesn't really matter, end quote. Rather, Ms. Pirro is someone who cares about political revenge, threatening to not just fire, but prosecute FBI employees simply for doing their jobs. Like all of President Trump's nominees, she has demonstrated unwavering loyalty to him. And if confirmed, we can expect that she will misuse the U.S. Attorney's Office to go after President Trump's political enemies. For these very serious concerns, I oppose her nomination and would urge my colleagues to do otherwise. Thank you.
Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley. I strongly oppose Jeanine Pirro's nomination to be U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. As we just heard from Senator Klobuchar, senators have the opportunity, the obligation, to review and consider nominees to serve as U.S. Attorney from their home states. The U.S. Attorney for D.C. is the only U.S. Attorney not scrutinized by home state senators or apparently the Senate Judiciary Committee. She is not a serious nominee. She has not practiced law in decades, although she sometimes pretends to be an attorney on TV and wants to lead what is one of the most important U.S. Attorney offices in our nation. She's called the January 6 insurrectionists imprisoned for their actions hostages, and she's agreed that the prosecutors handling January 6 cases should be criminally investigated and now wants to supervise those same prosecutors. I ask how they could trust her. We should bring Pirro in for a hearing so she could address these controversial statements because she wasn't vetted by a home state senator and never got a nomination hearing. Mr. Chairman, I also want to briefly speak to Emile Bove's nomination, which I did not get a chance to address last week. The state of Delaware is in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. I served as a clerk on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Most of us were here on January 6th, and we fled for our lives as insurrectionists attempted to stop the peaceful transfer of power and nearly succeeded. The United States Capitol Police saved our lives and did so by putting their own on the line. Hundreds of insurrectionists were charged and convicted for assaulting police officers that day. Mr. Bove used to agree with holding these people accountable. He even supervised some of the January 6 cases himself. But then President Trump pardoned all the insurrectionists, even those who assaulted police officers trying to protect us, and he changed course. He worked with Ed Martin to fire the January 6 line prosecutors. He demanded the names of FBI agents who worked on the January 6 cases. This is a shameful flip-flop that makes it clear he's willing to do whatever is asked of him, including attacks on law officers being disregarded. His response to your questions, for the record, Mr. Chair, condemned violence against law enforcement, but then said that some of the U.S. attorneys who prosecuted those violent insurrectionists were just as bad, calling them equally unacceptable. A remarkable statement, equating those who attack law enforcement with those who took those criminals to court and got them convicted, simply doing their jobs as prosecutors. I care deeply about this nomination. The person who fills this seat will hear cases brought by Delawareans, and based on what I've seen, I'm not confident my constituents will get a fair shake in front of Mr. Bovee, especially if they're challenging something done by this administration. I urge my colleagues to reject this nomination.
Senator Padilla and then Senator Schiff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colleagues, the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia is the largest U.S. Attorney's Office in the country. It has over 330 attorneys and 350 staff. The U.S. Attorney is responsible for thousands of criminal cases and thousands of civil cases, often extremely complicated ones. And who is before us for consideration to put in this position of overseeing the largest federal law enforcement office in the country? A television personality who hasn't litigated in more than 20 years. An attorney who is not admitted to the D.C. bar and who, before becoming interim U.S. attorney, had not practiced in federal court in the District of Columbia or elsewhere. These are serious law enforcement jobs. They're not patronage positions to be handed out to the president's unqualified friends and allies as a thank you for their loyalty. But it seems to be how this is being treated. Her lack of relevant experience doesn't even touch on Ms. Pirro's outrageously disqualifying past statements. And some of my colleagues have already hit on a lot of these, but I'll highlight just a few. She referred to the January 6 rioters who had been convicted as hostages and called for investigations into the January 6 prosecutors. As ranking member of the Rules Committee, I also have concerns about her work on the ongoing January 6 litigation. I remind my colleagues here that her predecessor, Ed Martin, argued that the federal government should refund restitution payments made by some of the convicted January 6 rioters. These refunds come straight from the money given to the architect of the Capitol for the nearly $3 million in damage that the insurrection has caused. She has publicly attacked members of this committee by name on multiple occasions, including calling one a, quote, demon rat. She's also attacked Republicans who dare speak out against Donald Trump. She has advocated for the arrest of FBI and DOJ investigators that she didn't agree with, saying that they should, quote, not just be fired, but taken out in handcuffs. She's been taken off the air by her own network for refusing to stop peddling lies about the 2020 election and for repeatedly making racist, Islamophobic comments, including about sitting members of Congress. Her personal involvement in Fox News' 2020 election coverage resulted in a $787.5 million settlement for defamation of Dominion voting systems as she lied about the security of our election systems. And after everything I have just described, which is just the tip of the iceberg of Ms. Pirro's record, I can't believe we're actually having a vote on the nomination. She may belong on Fox News, but she does not belong in a federal law enforcement role.
Senator Schiff and then Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
He says we don't want the shame and scandal that Pirro has brought to Westchester County. Reject her. Reject her. She does not need it. She's unqualified, disqualified, scandalous, questionable accountability, and a liar.
Now, Senator Schiff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. it's certainly, I think, come to all of our attention that the bench is held in a lower regard today than probably at any time in our lifetimes. So there are a lot of reasons why that is the case. But it is, I think, all the more incumbent, given the lack of public confidence in a truly independent judiciary, that we really carefully examine each of the nominees that come before this committee and ask ourselves the question, is this going to contribute to the solution and increase confidence in the judiciary, or is it going to contribute to the problem? And it seems to me that too many of the nominees we have examined, like Émile Beauvais, will only bring further discredit and a lack of public confidence in the judiciary. Is it really likely that members of the public, for example, are going to have confidence that decisions that a U.S. attorney, in this case, Pirro, are being made on a truly nonpartisan, impartial basis? We're going to face the same crisis of confidence in the bench now in the Justice Department, and we are. She may be a capable Fox News commentator. That is really not the criteria we should be using to pick someone for such an important office. I spent almost 6 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles. I venerate the work that's done by the Justice Department, at least I have in the past. I have the most profound concerns over what I see the department doing now, the extraordinary breaches of every policy of the department on both sides of the aisle, the dismissal of corruption cases because a allegedly corrupt public official is beneficial to the president on unrelated policy matters. I don't know where this is heading, but putting Pirro in this position of responsibility is just going to contribute to the problem. I mean, if you look at what those who know her best had to say about her, as my colleagues pointed out, Fox had to pay Dominion $787 million for defaming that voting system. And after reviewing one of Pirro's monologues after the 2020 election, Fox News executive Jerry Andrews emailed network executives that her monologue was rife with conspiracy theories and BS, and is yet another example why this woman should never be on live television. I mean, even her own people on Fox thought she couldn't be trusted to be on TV, on their own network. And after the show was briefly taken off the air, Fox News producer Justin Wells described, they took her off because she was crazy. Optics are bad, but she's crazy. Well, her own executive producer also described her as nuts. Are we going to put someone that even Fox, and I'm not a particular fan of Fox, but even Fox thought was crazy, nuts, couldn't be trusted on live television? We're going to trust her with the lives and liberty of people in the District of Columbia? Her confirmation is only going to add to the lack of public confidence in the Justice Department. I asked her in my questions for the record if she stood by these comments she made that her own executives thought were nuts and crazy and not worthy of being on television, and she would not respond. That should give us a lot of pause about putting someone in a position of responsibility like that. I would just appeal that when it comes to the Justice Department, when it comes to the bench, that we raise the bar a little. Let's not put people on the bench who are encouraging Justice Department lawyers to say F you to the court, or dropping legitimate corruption cases, or lying so badly on national TV that they cost their own network hundreds of millions of dollars. We could do better than that, and I would hope and urge that we will, and urge a no vote on Pirro.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Let me just build on what my colleague, Senator Schiff, has said so well. What ought to concern us on this committee what should concern us on this committee, and we have a very proud tradition on the Judiciary Committee of the United States Senate of responsibly scrutinizing nominees for United States attorney positions and judgeships is what we don't know about these nominees and what we haven't had the opportunity to ask, such as the questions for the record that Jeanine Pirro has refused to answer. We should be having a hearing with her, asking her why she was regarded as crazy, asking her why she advocated that the prosecutors of the January 6 cases be investigated. And I just want to say a word about the men and women who come today every day in the United States Department of Justice. You know, I was the United States Attorney for the District of Connecticut, as a number of us have been prosecutors in the federal system. I was also a state attorney general. They come to work every day seeking justice. They have an ethos and tradition for the person who is going to be head of the largest United States Attorney's office in the nation and who has responsibility for prosecuting federal crimes that affect the whole nation, to say that the ones to be investigated and prosecuted are the assistant U.S. attorneys who brought criminal charges against the January 6 rioters, I think betrays the entire ethos and norms of the Department of Justice. It undermines, literally, justice in the United States. She ought to be asked what she meant when she was asked on a radio show by a guest who said January 6 prosecutors should be, quote, criminally investigated. And she said, quote, I absolutely agree with that. She's failed to disavow that position. She's failed to answer questions that we've posed in written requests for information to her about remarks that she's made in the past. We need to do our job here, Mr. Chairman. We have a responsibility to scrutinize those kinds of responses and to have her testify. And likewise, with Mr. Beauvais, a lot more unanswered questions. I submitted yesterday a letter to the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, asking for results of the investigation done of a case supervised by Mr. Beauvais, finding very serious wrongdoing on the part of some of his subordinates and perhaps holding him responsible for them. The Office of Professional Responsibility concluded an investigation. We've had no access to it. He ought to be asked about it. Likewise, the whistleblower who came forward and others who have indicated they have information ought to be questioned by us in public, under oath. We have a job to do here. We should do our job. We should scrutinize these nominees with the kind of fairness, but also intensity that is part of our mandate, because the judgeships are lifetime and the prosecutors are enormously powerful. I always felt that the most important decisions I made as a prosecutor were whether to charge someone, because charges can follow people throughout their lives, impact them financially and reputationally. And she is going to command an office of hundreds of attorneys who will be bringing charges and perhaps devastatingly affect the lives of individuals, as well as clearly a responsibility to uphold the public interest in enforcing the law. I think we ought to be delving into their backgrounds by continuing our fact-finding in this committee rather than going forward with her today.
Senator
Thank you.
Booker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think if I have my facts correct, I'm the only one of the 100 senators that's actually born in the District of Columbia. My parents came here after college, met here, were for many, many years a part of this city and a part of this community. They moved back here after I left for graduate school and again rejoined the city that they love. I feel very deeply that Washington, D.C. should be a state. They literally have the four other states have similar populations. We had a revolution in this country for this very idea that we should not have taxation without representation. They have no senator. They have no one to speak up for their interests. They have no one to speak up for their values, no one to work in a cooperative fashion to make sure that the people in some of the most important positions in their community actually reflect that community. To me, this is yet another deep insult to the dignity and the decency of the people of Washington, D.C. It is deeply offensive to the people who have called this community home for generations. We as a body should have extra care for this population when it comes to positions like this. We as a body should, in the spirit of our founding documents and our founding ideals, should really think twice before we push someone on this population that is so violative of that population's interests. This candidate, this nominee, we've heard from my colleagues all the ways in which this person has not earned such a position. We have an obligation spelled out clearly in the Article 1 branch of our Constitution that we should advise and consent. This, to me, is insulting to a population that deserves much better from this body, and I'm sorry that we're moving forward.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Booker.
It look-
DC residents agree. We do not want Jeanine Pirro. We need a federal prosecutor. We need a federal prosecutor who will keep us safe, who will not grandstand for the cameras. We need somebody who will not turn the resources of her office against us.
We'll now turn to the nomination of Jeanine Pirro. What's wrong?
We're waiting for Senator Blackburn. She just stepped out. We have to wait for her to get back.
Ye gods. I want to introduce into the record in support of Pirro from the National Fraternal Order of Police. They praise Ms. Pirro for, quote, passion for seeking justice for victims, which was cornerstone of her prosecutorial career. They further quote, she has been widely praised for her work. She has been widely praised for her work in prosecuting domestic abusers, sexual abusers, stalkers, and rapists. Without objection, that will be put in. And then clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Graham.
Aye.
Mr. Cornyn.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. Hawley.
Aye.
Mr. Gillis.
Aye.
Mr. Kennedy.
Aye.
Mrs. Blackburn. Aye. Mr. Schmidt.
Aye.
Mrs. Britt.
Aye by proxy.
Mrs. Moody. Aye. Mr. Durbin.
No.
Mr. Whitehouse.
No by proxy.
Go.
Ms. Klobuchar.
No by proxy.
Mr. Coons.
No by proxy.
Mr. Blumenthal.
No.
Ms. Arona.
No by proxy.
Mr. Booker.
No.
Mr. Padilla.
No.
Mr. Welch.
No by proxy.
Mr. Schitt. Chairman Grassley.
Aye.
On this vote, the ayes are 12, the nays are 10.
Okay.
Say take a report in.
Well, the nominee will be favorably reported 12 votes, 12 to 10. First up on the legislative agenda is the Trace Act. This bill is sponsored by Tillis, Padilla, Blumenthal. It directs the Attorney General to include data in the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System that indicates if the last known location of a missing person was on the federal land or in territorial waters of the United States. I understand that there's a manager's amendment, OLL 25998, which I would now call up and without objection will be adopted. Any objection? No objection heard, so sponsor's amendment. If any of the bill's sponsors would like to speak on the bill at this point, I will pause for debate.
Mr. Chair, just briefly, I want to thank Senator Padilla for being co-lead, Senator Blumenthal for being original co-sponsor. This is a measure that passed unanimously out of the last Congress. We are resubmitting it, hopefully this time we will get it to the President's desk in this Congress. I will subject my formal comments for the record. Thank you.
Okay.
Urge adoption.
Mr. Chairman.
Please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Durbin.
I support this package, and I want to particularly note the Comprehensive Health and Integrity in Licensing and Documentation Act, which I'm pleased to lead with you, will extend important protections to ensure all individuals with unsupervised access to children are vetted by a nationwide background check.
Thank you. Those in favor of 1038, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and 1038 will be reported to the floor. The next bill is 1098, called the Opioid Overdose Data Collection Enhancement Act. This is my bill with Senators Cantwell, Cornyn, Klobuchar. Our bill provides funding to track drug overdoses so that resources like Narcan aren't wasted and are distributed to areas where they're really needed. If any of the bill's sponsors would like to say a few words, now's the time to do it. I don't see any requests for. Oh, Senator Blumenthal.
If there's no objection, I ask to be added as a co-sponsor to this bill. And I also want to just clarify that I was a no on all of the U.S. Attorney nominees. I'm not sure whether in the back and forth I might have been missed. I was here. And just to clarify the record.
I assume the clerk heard that. You'll be so recorded.
Thank you.
And you will be co-sponsor.
Thank you.
Those in favor of 1098, say aye.
Mr. Grassley? Mr. Grassley?
Where?
I'm sorry, I was trying to be recognized.
Go ahead.
Yes. First of all, I want to express at the top a lot of frustration that the DOJ is scraping money back from some states. I've made this point multiple times, but it is very frustrating to me that my state is being denied these type of grants while other states are. We're seeing a big frustration across New Jersey that very thoughtful grants that could be saving lives and being substantively helpful are being denied. And with that frustration, I want to call up an amendment. I'd like to call up my amendment number ALL 25698. Mr. Chairman, this amendment would allow S1098 to take effect on the date when the Attorney General makes public all unclassified files, flight logs, correspondence, and evidence related to Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and their associates. The Department of Justice, we know clearly, has lied to the American people one way or another. Attorney General Bondi said that there were truckloads of evidence from the Epstein files and the Epstein list, leading people to believe that there was criminal activity that they had evidence of. I know Bovee, who we're talking about, was part of this. We found out yesterday that the president is mentioned several times in the Epstein files, and he was briefed on it back in May when he said he was not told that. Then in July, suddenly the DOJ and the FBI said there was nothing additional to disclose. So what's the lie? That there are truckloads of evidence and this DOJ is protecting those associates with this horrific crime? that Mr. Bovee, a Third Circuit nominee, is part of that cover-up? Or is the lie that there is nothing there at all? Let's just find out. This is simply asking for disclosure and transparency, and I'd like to offer that amendment.
Mr. Chair, parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chair, down here. Yeah, I don't know the details of the judiciary rules, but is it in order for a member to interrupt the chair when he's in the middle of calling a vote?
I'll have to ask
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
lawyers on that point.
It's up to the chairman.
What?
It's up to the chairman.
It's up to the chairman, but I'm not going to pick a fight with Booker.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd call up a second-degree amendment to Senator Booker's amendment to 1098. This has to do with death penalty as aggravating factors for illegal aliens who commit a homicide in the United States while illegally in the country. I find it astonishing that our colleagues are more interested in the crimes of a dead man than they are in addressing the real problems that affect the public safety of American citizens on a daily basis, and virtually all of which flow from the open border policies of the Biden administration. As we discussed in a subcommittee hearing a couple of days ago, there are more than 200,000 illegal aliens under final orders of deportation who have exhausted all of their remedies under the law and who have either committed crimes or are charged with crimes. And yet we hear from our colleagues here that, well, these are just gardeners or housekeepers or people who are relatively innocent other than having committed the crime of illegally entering the country. But to our colleagues, the intrigue and salacious details of the Epstein case, of course, are a great distraction from the issues that have make a meaningful difference in the lives of ordinary Americans, and what I thought we were here to actually serve, which is their interests. And what do the American people really care about? Well, that President Trump is doing exactly what he promised to do and what he campaigned on from the moment he took to the campaign trail, and of course has followed through on and kept that promise now he's in office. Let's talk about how President Trump has kept his promises when it comes to making our communities safer by securing the border and enforcing our immigration laws. He promised to restore America's standing in the world, and President Trump has kept this promise from making his tax cuts permanent through the One Big Beautiful Bill to trade deals that put America first and stop unfair competition by our adversaries, help lower inflation, lower gas prices, lower food prices. President Trump is delivering on the pocketbook issues that virtually all Americans care about. And let me turn to national security and public safety. He promised to secure the border. Promise made, promise kept. He promised to restore the rule of law and enforce the laws actually on the books, a promise being kept every day by our men and women in blue, our immigration officers and our law enforcement officers in the field. This last hearing, as I indicated earlier, I held a hearing on President Biden's open border policies that led to our country being flooded, literally flooded, by millions of illegal aliens, including among that terrorists and gang members and people who committed heinous crimes against innocent American citizens like Laken Riley. We heard the stories of two angel moms, Tammy Nobles and Marie Vega, both of whom have to live every day with the horrendous murders of their loved ones. They had a few simple questions for us and for law enforcement during the Biden administration. Why didn't the Biden administration do anything to stop criminals from coming into the country? Why didn't President Biden remove the worst criminal aliens that were already in the United States and who kept committing crimes? Not just once, not just twice, but multiple crimes against innocent Americans. Why aren't congressional Democrats more concerned about keeping our communities safe than they are about distractions like the salacious details with regard to a dead man, Jeffrey Epstein. As Ms. Vega told us, no mother should have to bury her child before she dies, and certainly not bury a child because he or she was killed by an illegal alien who should have never been here in the United States in the first place. Yet my colleagues insist there's nothing to see here and that the real crime is President Trump being in office and enforcing the law. They lost the election, fair and square. President Trump received a mandate, and they still haven't accepted the fact that he won the election on November the 5th. Well, I challenge my colleagues to put their money where their mouth is and do right by these angel moms who I mentioned a moment ago. And so this amendment will allow us to truly deal with criminal aliens and illegals who pose a threat to national security and public safety, not just play lip service. It adds mandatory bars to asylum for sex offenders, pedophiles, and aliens who commit crimes of violence. It would punish and deter illegal aliens who murder U.S. citizens by giving federal prosecutors jurisdiction to pursue these illegal alien murderers and guiding judges and juries to pronounce the sentence of death for aliens convicted of murdering U.S. citizens. If my colleagues truly care about public safety, they will vote for my amendment today.
Mr. Chairman.
Before I call on Senator Blumenthal, no, Senator Blumenthal was going to be next. Before I call on him, I'd like to say a couple things. Number one, we're in the middle of a vote, so we may not be able to get these three bills out. Secondly, I know that if we got to go to finality on these amendments, we'll have to do that. But I would beg with the two people that are sponsoring amendments, we're dealing with an opioid overdose bill with the problems we have. It seems like this is a bipartisan bill too, why we should screw this bill up. And I would ask if my colleagues would think about changing their mind on offering the amendment. Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really hope that this issue would be bipartisan, because I think that the American public, regardless of whether they identify as Republicans and Democrats, really believe that full disclosure of these files is absolutely necessary to dispel the doubts about the credibility of the Department of Justice in the Epstein matter. I really believe it's in the interest of the president for there to be full disclosure. And that's the reason why on the House side, there has been bipartisan support for full disclosure of the Epstein files. I really hope there would be here too. Senator Cornyn is right that Jeffrey Epstein is dead, but right now, ongoing in real time, right before our eyes, are events and actions that smack of a cover-up. There ought to be no secret meetings, no secret deals, especially with Trump's personal lawyer, who is now doing his bidding at the Department of Justice, namely Todd Blanche, who reportedly is on his way as we speak to Florida or whatever prison is currently confining Ghislaine Maxwell, possibly to offer her a deal in return for exculpatory information about his former client, the President of the United States. All of it just really stinks. No ordinary person can send their Department of Justice henchmen to some kind of cover-up talking to a convicted felon in a federal prison. And unfortunately, the appearance here is that President Trump, once again, is misusing his power corruptly to benefit himself. Most people can't do any of it. It is unfair, and it undermines the credibility of our entire criminal justice process. The American people deserve full disclosure of this file. I hope we can have bipartisan agreement.
Mr.
Chairman?
Senator,
Mr. Chairman?
well, I should probably go back and forth. Go ahead, and then I'll call on Durbin.
Good call. Mr. Chairman, Are we under some sort of time limit by which we have to act today?
If we want to get these bills out, the answer is yes. Whenever we lose a quorum because there's a vote going on or the 2-hour rule is kicked in.
How can we go ahead and vote while then allowing everybody else to have their say?
I'll stay around as long as people want to speak.
Could we go ahead and vote?
We
And then
could if-
those who would like to make comments can stay. Would that be okay?
We could.
Pretty
could vote.
please, with sugar on top?
We could, but I'm not going to have a upheaval like we had.
You won't have a fight with Booker. He's okay with that.
Go ahead. Senator Biden asked for the floor.
But can we do that, Mr. Chairman? That was a question, actually.
I'm going to ask, can we proceed to vote on these amendments and then proceed to vote on the bill?
I have a question on the Cornyn second degree.
But I have a question first.
I'm sorry, I thought you gave up the floor. Go ahead.
No, sir. Can we go ahead and vote on the bills? And then you stay, or whomever else wants to stay, to let everybody finish making their remarks in light of the fact that we have a time limit by which we have to act, and we're in the middle of a vote.
I thought I answered that by saying that I wanted to make sure that we had a consensus that we ought to do that.
There's a vote on the floor. Someone to vote on this.
Can we vote?
I don't hear an objection, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I didn't hear a motion
I make that motion.
Okay.
that we vote. Excuse me, would you restate your motion?
Sure. I move that we go ahead and vote on the matters before us in light of the fact that we're under a time limit.
Clerk will call the
And-
roll.
Thank
No,
you.
no. Mr. Chairman, I think I'd just like to be recognized. I know Senator Durbin and Senator Whitehouse, who outrank me on this committee, have asked to be recognized as well to speak.
I don't want to pick a fight with Mr. Booker either, but I made a motion. Is my motion in order, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, your motion is,
Could we have a vote, Mr. Chairman? Pretty
can I
please?
have a vote? Yes, call the roll.
Thank you.
But we clarify, without a discussion on the second degree amendment?
Don't call the roll yet.
Without discussion or debate
On the, you
on
just,
the motion?
Go ahead, sir.
I don't want to jump over the ranking member of the.
I'll defer.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
I'm reading that Cornyn second degree, and he said a lot of really important things about immigration that are worthy to be discussed. And I'm happy to vote on an immigration bill. I disagree with the death penalty. I will vote my conscience on this. But I want to draw everybody's attention to the first two lines of your second degree. They have nothing to do about immigration. They have nothing to do with the death penalty. I've never seen this before. His first two line is not to bring up this important issue that should be discussed, debated. Your first two lines are to strike my amendment in its entirety. So what we have right here is hidden behind real issues on immigration is really just trying to not vote on the important points that we brought up about transparency and accountability on the Jeffrey Epstein files. This is not an amendment to my amendment. This is an attempt to strike what I have a whole list of prominent Republicans, elected leaders, who want the same thing I want, which is just to have transparency on this matter.
Can we vote
I've
on
heard
my
some of the
second degree?
comments, if I can finish, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I have heard public statements by my Senate colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I've heard comments from Republicans on the House side and Democrats on the House side that we want transparency and accountability on a matter of public safety. Senator Cornyn said that Jeffrey Epstein's dead yet, but his victims are not. There are women who have horrific stories of vile violence that was committed against them. We have Pam Bondi, our Attorney General, who said that there is evidence, truckloads of it, as to these crimes, potential co-conspirators, potential others involved. How can we not want to just know what happened? Why are we trying to simply turn away from the highest law enforcement officers in the land, from our FBI director to our attorney general, who spoke towards crimes committed and others involved in those crimes. Why are we considering an amendment that is hiding behind real immigration issues, but real intent is to strike a simple request for transparency, for accountability, that Republican voices all across the spectrum have been demanding from this president and this attorney general? So if Senator Cornyn is going to offer an amendment, I'm going to offer a third degree that simply strikes his first two lines. I'll vote on your immigration stuff that you so strongly stated there was the importance of this, but you hid the fact that you put here the real intention of your amendment. It has nothing to do with immigration. It says it right here in the first two lines. The real effort was just to not have accountability and transparency. What are you afraid of?
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Yeah, you may respond.
I trust the Senate-confirmed Attorney General of the United States to make the proper legal analysis to determine what of the Jeffrey Epstein files can be released. He was confirmed by the United States Senate as Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States. I trust her to make the right legal determination. But I would ask my colleague from New Jersey, you claim you care about the victims. Do you care about Tammy Nobles? Do you care about Marie Vega, the angel moms who lost their loved ones, their children, to the acts of an illegal alien who never should have been here in the first place? Do you care about them?
Can I respond to the senator's question? Sir, I've known you for 14 years. You and I both care about victims of crime. And to suggest otherwise is stunning to me.
Senator,
if I may finish, sir,
Senator,
I allow you to
question.
finish.
I asked you a question.
And I'm trying to
I didn't
answer.
make an accusation.
Mr. Chairman,
I asked you a
Mr. Chairman,
answer the question.
I should have allowed a time to respond to the senator's question. I did not interrupt him, and now he's interrupting me.
Please.
It is another violation of the decorum of this place.
Go ahead, Senator Bolton.
Senator Cornyn, both you and I have spent our lives. I know your record. I know your history. I know what you've done. I would never, ever question whether you care about the victims of a heinous crime.
Mr. Chairman, please help me.
You ask me if I care? Absolutely.
Thank you.
No, I'm not finished yet.
Well, thank you for answering the question.
Well, I'm going to answer the question in full. You are not sincere.
Let me explain.
Sir, he has put an amendment in.
Would you allow
trying to use the horrific nature.
Would you allow me as sponsor of this bill to
Sir,
explain?
I will not pick a fight with Chuck Grassley in the same way that Chuck Grassley won't pick a fight with me.
The reason for his amendment is because your amendment says that this bill that we're working on will not go into effect until we get all these records. And this bill is an opioid bill to help solve some of the drug problems in this country. And we ought to get it passed because it's a bipartisan bill and it's very badly needed.
Sir, may I respond?
Yes.
So I said at the top of my comments, my frustrations, we've said it to your staff, we've said it to others, that when funds like this have been made available so far in the first 6 months, they're clawing back funds from my state. And that's unfair, and I would like to deal with those. We could deal with them. And given that, I am sticking to an amendment that is not controversial. Okay. I know it's not controversial, sir, because I've seen polling literally on Republican channels that the overwhelming majority of Republicans and Democrats want transparency and accountability. That the overwhelming majority of Americans has seen that one of these two things is lies. Is there truckloads full of evidence as to victims of crime not having justice? Have we been lied to? Who are we trying to protect? What are they trying to hide? This is not controversial. We have Republican leaders in Congress calling for the same thing that this amendment calls for. And so for a second degree to be offered to mine where you're using horrific crimes to hide the real intention of this. If this amendment is so important, just strike the first two lines that strikes my entire amendment. The intention of this is clear. It's to not give the American people accountability, transparency, and truth. That's what we as the Judiciary Committee should be seeking. So I offer a third-degree amendment, preserving every noble thing that the senator from Texas said he wanted.
You can't offer third-degree amendment.
I can't offer a third degree. Then I ask that we strike the true intention of his amendment, the first two lines.
At this stage, you can't offer a third-degree amendment. If there's some way for you to do that, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, may I respond?
Yes.
Briefly?
Then we'll have a roll call vote, because I know you folks want to get votes on your amendment. I asked you to withdraw them, and you aren't withdrawing them. So
Well, I
go
just
ahead
want to
and
ask a question, Mr. Chairman. In your opinion, would the addition of these amendments to the underlying bipartisan bill jeopardize our ability to pass this underlying bill, anti-opioid bill, out of committee and across the Senate floor and get it enacted into law? Would these amendments jeopardize that?
I see them jeopardized in ways even beyond what you said.
So,
because if we pass the legislation with this stuff on, it wouldn't go into effect anyway. Who knows how far down the road? When the president signs the bill, I want it to be effective.
That's what I thought, and I appreciate your answering the question. I think the debate that Senator Booker and I have is not something that's going to be resolved today. And so it will continue. So I think regardless of how we act on the underlying bill, that debate will continue, and neither he nor I are giving anything up in terms of our ability to continue to debate this topic. But I'm willing to withdraw my amendment if Senator Booker's willing to withdraw his amendment in the interest of passing this bipartisan anti-opioid bill out of the committee and through the Senate and seeing it enacted into law, and hopefully saving some lives in the process.
Senator Booker.
Mr. Grassley, sir, I have asked for someone to address my New Jersey concerns for months now. There was an incident in which you got a special carve-out for your state when they froze funds, but I have got no justice for New Jersey. So if you want to postpone this and address my New Jersey concerns about the resources we are not getting, and I know you would do that with me in good faith, I would be happy in our next meeting, but right now I am sticking with my amendment.
It'd be faster to address your concerns for New Jersey if you'd asked me to help you with the administration to get something done so you can get your money.
Sir, I've got no, I'm not from you.
Then if you do it through the legislative process, tell me that. Let me make a conversation with the White House on your issue.
But I'm going to stick with my amendment until I get satisfaction on that.
The clerk will call the roll.
And what are we voting on? I have no idea. On my amendment?
No, we're voting.
It's the second degree.
Call the roll on the Cornyn amendment.
Mr. Grant.
Aye.
Mr. Cornyn.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. Hawley. Mr. Tillis. Mr. Kennedy.
Aye by proxy.
Mrs. Blackburn.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Schmidt.
No.
Mrs. Britt.
Aye by proxy.
Mrs. Moody. Mr. Durbin.
No on concealing the Epstein files.
Mr. Whitehouse.
No.
Ms. Klobuchar.
Mr. Chairman.
No by proxy.
Mr. Cruz.
No by proxy.
Mr. Blumenthal.
I vote no because I vote no on concealing the Epstein file.
Ms. Arona.
No by proxy.
Okay.
Mr. Booker.
I vote no on this effort to conceal the Epstein files.
Mr. Padilla.
Administration.
Mr. Welch.
No, I'd like the Epstein files.
Mr. Schmidt.
No on concealing the Epstein files.
Chairman Grassley.
Aye.
On this vote, the ayes are 12, the nays are 10.
Okay, the Cornyn amendment is adopted. Now we will go to the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. So his second degree, which had nothing to do with immigration, which was to conceal the Epstein file, Senator Cornyn's effort to conceal the Epstein files right here on 1 and 2 has now violated my amendment. There is no amendment anymore. It passed.
That's right.
And Cornyn is saying, yes, I did something to stop the American public from seeing the Epstein files. It renders my amendment moot. That was the intention of Senator Cornyn's amendment that he just passed, which was to conceal
Chairman, I have to respond. Nothing we are voting on today is going to change any of the debate about the Epstein files.
So your letter addresses their.
That debate will continue.
That is not
But
true.
If you don't acknowledge that, I just have to, I really question whether your amendment is actually in good faith or not, because nothing's going to change that. But, Mr. Chairman, my second degree amendment passed, which included striking the Senator Booker's amendment. I believe we've, committee's spoken.
May I respond? He directly referenced me. May I respond? Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So Mr. Cornyn claims that nothing about this would end debate. We're not seeking to end debate. We're seeking to pass legislation out of this committee that would force the disclosure and the transparency and the truth being made public. We had a chance today that Senator Cornyn blocked to make the truth known to the American public. We had the power today, the possibility today, to force out the truth regarding the Epstein files and the lies and the obfuscation that is happening by this administration. What Senator Cornyn did today was to block the truth about what's happening with the Department of Justice and the Epstein file. It is that on its plain truth, no matter how much he wants to try to dodge that truth.
Mr. Chairman, I have to respond.
Well, quickly, because
I will
Graham wants to
respond
speak.
quickly.
Take your time.
What Senator Booker is trying to do is to kill this underlying bipartisan bill that will hopefully save hundreds, maybe thousands of lives because of the opioid crisis. It's already taken tens of thousands of lives in this country over recent years because of the Biden open border policies. So I'm simply trying to preserve this bipartisan legislation, again, that will save lives. The debate that he and I are having over the Epstein files, I doubt will be resolved today based on any amendments either he or I offer. So that's the reason for my amendment, because I want to save lives from the opioid crisis. And I believe his amendment is a distraction from that and actually will jeopardize seeing this bipartisan legislation enacted into law.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
No, I'm calling on Graham.
I thought you were going back and forth, sir. I didn't know that.
I'll be real quick. So if Senator Booker's problem is with the bill itself, which it seems to be, I understand that. Hopefully we can work out a way to get money to your state you think does justice for New Jersey. I got that. That makes perfect sense. But the Epstein amendment, present it some other way, it's not going away. What we're trying to do with this bill is really good. And there's no end to this, a way of doing business here. If this is a headline about Cornyn blocks transparency of Epstein, then that would be sad, because he's responding to your amendment that would make the bill, quite frankly, fail. I want to help Senator Booker with your problem, but what you're doing, I don't think is helpful to the bill. I don't think it's helpful to the committee. I don't think it's helpful to your problem.
Senator Graham, there's not been a time in my career where you said you want to help me that you didn't. So I'm going to take you up on that, and I'm going to withdraw
glad to-
and I'm going to withdraw my amendment.
You're a good man, and I will try to deliver with Senator Grassley the best I can.
Mr. Chairman, I would also,
Okay,
I would
those,
also ask leave to withdraw my amendment and vote on the underlying bill.
those in favor of 1098, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. The 1098 is reported. Now, the last bill that we have on the agenda is the Child Act. I co-lead this bill with Senator Durbin. The bill ensures that all individuals with unsupervised access to children is authorized to receive nationwide background checks. I'd like to recognize the bill's lead sponsor, Senator Durbin. I think you already spoke on it, didn't you? Yeah. Those in favor of 1528, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The bill will be reported and the committee's adjourned.
Uh-oh. Spartacus listened. Spartacus listened. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the live show. This is your boy Genesis, and you are currently tuned in to the Genesis Show. Here we go. Nancy Pelosi.
The Wolf of Washington could be in big trouble. Investigators might finally get a peek inside Nancy and Paulie P's earnings sheets.
Nancy Pelosi should be investigated because she has the highest return of anybody practically in the history of Wall Street. It happened by she knows exactly what's going to happen, what's going to be announced. She buys stock and then the stock goes up after the announcement's made.
Nancy heard the news and ran to CNN on a busted hip, but Tapper treated her like Biden on debate night.
Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
Yeah, but I wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that had been made over time. I'm not into it. My husband is.
I'm not into it. My husband is.
Uh-oh.
So Paulie P's in Napa, a Wall Street whiz kid, and his wife knows nada? If pillows could talk. Meanwhile, the Senate's suiting up too. They just advanced an anti-stock trading bill for Congress, but Trump's not pleased. He says, why would one Republican, Josh Hawley, side with Democrats to block a review of the bill? It's a great bill for Nancy and her, quote, husband, but bad for our country. Trump even gave Hawley a new nickname, second-tier senator. Josh Hawley joins me now. Are you a second-tier senator?
Well, that's not the worst thing that's been said about me even today, Jesse. So listen, I had a good chat with the president earlier this evening, and he reiterated to me he wants to see a ban on stock trading by people like Nancy Pelosi and members of Congress, which is what we passed today. I think it is absolutely vital we put a stop to this. Pelosi shouldn't just be investigated. She should be prosecuted. And we need to make what she is doing and other members of Congress is doing illegal. I mean, you shouldn't be able to go up to Congress and get rich by trading on information that only you have and not members of the public. Right now, lots of members of Congress are getting by with it. We need to make the whole thing illegal.
So when you spoke to the president, did he explain why he called you second tier?
Well, I think that the president, a number of people who are opposed to banning stock trading had said to the president that he would be covered by the bill. He'd have to sell Mar-a-Lago and sell assets. Not the case at all. The president and the vice president, all their assets are totally exempted. And here's the point. This is what we talked about. The point of this bill is to ban members of Congress from trading on the information that only they have. I've supported this bill for years, Jesse. I think we call it the Pelosi Act. It is named for her because she is the poster child of this kind of behavior. It ought to be illegal and it ought to be prosecutable.
So what Pelosi will say is that she doesn't manage any money. Her husband manages the money. Her husband makes the trades, and she has nothing to do with it. Does this bill have a loophole that she can exploit again?
Yeah, no, in fact, this bill will cover not only her, it will cover her husband. And the point is, we need to make it illegal for people to do this kind of thing. 86% of Americans look at stock trading by members of the Congress and they say, we ought to ban that. They can't believe it's not been banned already. Nobody should be up in Congress making a quick buck day trading when they should be doing the people's business. The president wants a stock trading ban. I want a stock trading ban. It's time to get it done.
All right, sounds like common sense to me. Senator Hawley, great to talk to you. Thank you again.
Ooh. This would be very good for the American people because a lot of people have been talking about Nancy Pelosi and the allegedly accusation of her getting insider information about stocks that would go up or down. You know, we have some public information about her purchase of Visa, and then, you know, how, she's done a lot. A lot has gone on, and people see it. And Americans are like, you know what? Maybe she does have insider information about this stock. All right, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Caroline Leavitt is going to be talking from the White House in about a couple of minutes from now. But before that, I want us to check out some update going on right now. Let's see. Let's see. All right, so what's up with this Obama situation?
Counselor and so-called gatekeeper Steve Ricchetti allegedly getting combative with House Republicans in his testimony yesterday, but eventually admitting some surprising details about Biden's decline.
So sources telling Fox, quote, Mr. Ricchetti admitted that they all knew Biden's age was an issue and were dealing with it as a political matter, adding in preparation for infamous debate, Steven Spielberg helped President Biden prepare for it.
Let's bring in Piers Morgan, the host of Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Good morning, first of all.
Good
morning.
Whoa, good
and
morning.
I'd like to apologise to Brian, sincerely, that I was given such superior genetics.
Right.
There's nothing I can do about it. It is literally genetic.
This is show how mature I am. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with being inferior.
Yeah, and I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Right.
But it's lovely to see you. And thanks for the weather. It's been absolutely, even by New York standards, your weather's been nuts. So thank you.
Okay.
What do you make up of this? I'm surprised none of the Democrats there has asked for a deal. And just be transparent.
Oh, the whole thing is ridiculous. I was writing columns for the New York Post for 2 years before that debate, saying, I'm really sorry, I say this respectfully, but the President of the United States is completely gaga, right? He can barely string a sentence together. He keeps falling over. He keeps making terrible mistakes that have to be rolled back by the White House press team. This cannot go on. I was even talking about invoking the 25th Amendment. And I'm a British guy who was writing half this stuff from across the pond. So if I could see it, and then we have the debate. And, of course, the point about the debate was this was the moment they couldn't cover up anymore. For 90 minutes, it was laid bare to the entire world. I remember my daughter, who's 13, came downstairs and she was watching about 10 minutes into the debate and she just said, Dada, is he asleep? Right, she's 13, right? So you don't need to be anything more than a 13-year-old who sees a guy who's basically half asleep. And I would put this
You know why? Good genes.
Very good genes.
Yeah.
Very good genes. But let me give you two ages. Donald Trump is 79. Right, he's about, 2 years younger than Biden? Mick Jagger is only 7 months younger than Joe Biden. So this is not about age, right? This is about competency and mental cognitive ability. And there's no doubt, because Mick Jagger prances around a stage for 2 hours every night on world tours, and he's 7 months younger than Biden. So I never buy into this. It's not an ageist thing. It was a commentary on his cognitive decline. And I watched this guy. Of course he's going to say this, because he's part of the cover-up. This was a guy who was there who knew that they were spinning this nonsense to the American people. If I was an American, I would love to be an American, actually. I think you're wonderful
working on
people. Thank you. If I get the accent right, I'll think about it. But if I was American, I'd feel really cheated.
Absolutely.
I would feel that for a very long period of time, I was spun a lie. And then the moment it was laid bare in that debate, then the George Clooney's come out and say, as if they didn't know before, then the Obamas, then all the others. And it's like, no, you all knew. You know, the thing about Spielberg, I mean, look, he was brought in to save Private Biden. And he ended up giving us another sequel to Jurassic Park. Right? Sorry, I was working on that all morning.
Yes,
I thought it was quite good.
So you should have had that at Gutfeld last
We
night.
want to talk to you about Sharon Osbourne because I
Yeah.
saw your post yesterday. You really loved her. You worked with her 5 seasons
Yeah, I did.
on America's Got Talent. And you know her very well. And she was with us on set when we were reporting on the Queen's funeral.
Yeah.
Tell me what you thought about that reaction yesterday. There were so many people lining the streets of Birmingham.
You know, it's very heartbreaking in one way. I watched Sharon yesterday. I teared up watching it because I've known Sharon a long time. She's a very, very close friend of mine. And to see her so broken in the way that she was, they were married nearly 50 years.
Wow.
And they never pretended they had the perfect marriage. They had probably more challenges than most marriages would ever go through. But what they had underpinning it was a ferocious love. It was an undimmed, ferocious love. And when I saw Sharon without her Ozzy, you know, it did make me choke up, actually, that very picture.
You texted with him, you said.
Yeah, I texted with both of them because it was, I say it's heartbreaking, but also if you could have scripted a way for Ozzy to go, actually, I think what he would have done is said, I would like to have a farewell concert in Birmingham, the city where he grew up as a young lad, where Black Sabbath were formed. I'd like all my mates, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, all these guys. I'd like all my family. They were all backstage. I'd like thousands of Brummies, what we call people from Birmingham, all with their Brummie accents. I'd like them all in the crowd going nuts. I want to perform a few hits and say goodbye, and then bid us farewell. And I texted him the night before, and I read it yesterday just to remind myself, and he just said, oh, I'm really excited. We're in Birmingham, the final show, and then that's that. And when I read that text again, I was like, wow. It was almost like he was putting a seal on the end of his life, you know? And look, if you said to Ozzy, in his 30s and 40s, you're going to live to 76. He'd have gone, I'll take that. You know, he had a wild, crazy life. He was one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. Honestly, when I did America's Got Talent, we would fly around America doing the audition shows, and Ozzy would just appear randomly in Miami or Seattle or whatever, and we'd go out for dinner. And I remember one hilarious one was when it was me, Sharon, and Ozzy having dinner, and Kelly turned up with some random boyfriend she had at the time. And they got very bored very quickly with these 3 oldies talking. So they left, and then they went round, and there were windows like this, like French windows, doors, so with glass fronts. And the pair of them dropped their trousers and moonied through to the 3 of us at the table. Crazy. And Sharon and Ozzy were, like, enraged. And they were like, this is disgusting behaviour. And I went, from you two? Really?
Yeah.
You don't think that's a product of their environment?
Right.
And then Ozzy burst out laughing. He laughed like a drain for about 10 minutes because he realised the absurdity of trying to pretend that his child wasn't going to behave a bit like him. But they were a special couple. My heart breaks for Sharon. She's a wonderful lady. And I think that Ozzy... I think the manner of his departure, the scale of the mourners that came out, and almost part mourning and part celebrating this amazing guy's life, I think people have been taken aback by the scale of it.
Wow,
and there's going to be a private funeral today, I think, with just a few family and friends. But yesterday, for Ozzy, was him saying goodbye to the people of Birmingham. And I've not seen crowds like that for somebody's funeral in the UK, probably outside of a royal ceremony. So it was amazing.
Piers Morgan, you are amazing.
Thank
Great
you.
to see
And I'm sorry again about the genetics, but what can you do? Some people get these genes, some people get those genes, buddy. It's just the way that's the way life goes.
This is the 3rd time he's hit me. And
the way the cookie crumbles.
Good genes. Good genes, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, is on right now live. Here we go.
American businesses. The deal guarantees that American businesses will have unprecedented levels of access to the European Union markets to export our American-made. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. We have a lot of news today, and I have quite a few announcements for you, so let's get to it. First, on behalf of the President and the White House, we express our deepest condolences to the family of New York police officer Islam, who made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of his fellow New Yorkers. As the funeral services are held in New York City today, Everyone at the White House is keeping the officer's family, friends, and fellow NYPD law enforcement officers in our thoughts and prayers. The President has always, and will always, proudly stand with our men and women in blue. May God bless Officer Islam and the other individuals who were tragically killed in this senseless act of violence. In other news, President Trump's working visit to Scotland was a huge success. In less than 48 hours, President Trump brokered the biggest, most impactful trade deal in history and prevented a war in Asia for the second time since he took office. We have never had a president who wields the full power of the United States to negotiate good deals for our country and its people like President Trump.
Facts.
This is what maximum leverage looks like.
Facts.
On the peace front, President Trump helped deliver an immediate and unconditional ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia. The two countries were engaged in a deadly conflict that had displaced more than 300,000 people until President Trump stepped in to put an end to it. The president spoke directly on the phone with the acting Prime Minister of Thailand and the Prime Minister of Cambodia to inform both leaders that unless they brought their conflict to an end, there would be no trade discussions or agreements with the United States. Almost immediately afterward, a peace was brokered that will save thousands of lives and allowed for trade negotiations with these countries to resume, and they have. The president has now ended conflicts between Thailand and Cambodia, Israel and Iran, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, India and Pakistan, Serbia and Kosovo, and Egypt and Ethiopia. This means President Trump has brokered, on average, about one peace deal or ceasefire per month during his 6 months in office. It's well past time that President Trump was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
Uh-oh.
I know the topic of Israel is on everyone's mind. I have an update from Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who I got off the phone with this morning. Special Envoy Witkoff and Ambassador Huckabee had a very productive meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu and other officials today in Israel on the topic of delivering much-needed food and aid to Gaza. President Trump is a humanitarian with a big heart, and that's why he sent Special Envoy Witkoff to the region in an effort to save lives and end this crisis. Tomorrow, Special Envoy Witkoff and Ambassador Huckabee will be traveling into Gaza to inspect the current distribution sites and secure a plan to deliver more food and meet with local Gazans to hear firsthand about this dire situation on the ground. The Special Envoy and the Ambassador will brief the President immediately after their visit to approve a final plan for food and aid distribution into the region, and we will provide more details for all of you once that plan is approved and agreed on by the President of the United States. On the trade front, the President secured a historic trade agreement with the European Union that puts America first and fundamentally strengthens the economic relationship between the two largest economies in the world. This deal delivers on two of President Trump's core promises on trade, supercharging America's manufacturing capacity and opening up foreign market access to American businesses. The deal guarantees that American businesses will have unprecedented levels of access to the European Union markets to export our American-made goods. Also, as part of this agreement, the EU will purchase $750 billion in U.S. energy to strengthen our energy dominance, reduce European reliance on adversarial sources, and narrow our trade deficit with the EU. The EU will also make new investments of $60 billion in the United States, in addition to the more than $100 billion the EU companies already invest in the U.S. every year. All of these massive purchases and investments will happen by the end of 2028. What we are watching is President Trump rebuilding the greatest economy in the history of the world and simultaneously proving the so-called economic experts wrong at every turn. Media pundits said a trade deal with the EU this monumental and beneficial to America would be impossible, but President Trump made it happen. The so-called economic experts repeatedly said that the American economy would be in a recession this summer. Well, summer is here. It's almost over. And that recession does not exist. Yesterday, in fact, real GDP growth in the second quarter increased at a 3.0% annual rate, significantly above expectations. President Trump's America First policies are driving economic growth, as he always said they would. And this growth is being driven by the private sector, not the government. Federal government spending fell for a second straight quarter, while real business fixed investment rose by nearly 2% following its first quarter surge. President Trump is right-sizing government spending, reversing the damage done by the Biden administration, and allowing the private sector to flourish. The same so-called experts claimed that President Trump's tariffs would spike inflation and hurt American consumers. But consumer spending growth just accelerated and inflation remains right on track. For the past 5 straight months, core inflation has come in below market expectation and remains in line with the Fed's 2% inflation target. Meanwhile, customs and tariff revenues have already totaled more than $150 billion since President Trump took office, leading to the first June budget surplus in nearly a decade. Those revenues will skyrocket even further starting tomorrow when new reciprocal tariff rates take effect. President Trump is restoring America's economic sovereignty by reducing our reliance on foreign countries, boosting investment in the U.S. to the tune of trillions of dollars, and creating hundreds of thousands of high-paying jobs for the American people. With America finally put first on trade and the largest middle-class tax cuts in history and other pro-growth provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill beginning to take effect, the American economy will boom like never before over the course of the next 3.5 years, thanks to the president's vision. Finally, as you all know, the president signed an executive order earlier this year to solve the problem of exorbitant pharmaceutical pricing. According to recent data, the prices that Americans have been paying for brand name drugs are more than 3 times the price other similarly developed nations pay. The president is determined to solve this problem and took further action today. He has signed 17 letters to pharmaceutical companies' CEOs. And I would like to read you one of these letters to the CEO of Eli Lilly. All of these letters will be provided to you following this briefing. This is to the CEO of Eli Lilly from the President of the United States. On May 12, 2025, I signed an executive order delivering most favored nation prescription drug pricing to American patients to stop global freeloading and guarantee that Americans pay the same prices enjoyed by other developed nations. Right now, brand name drugs in the United States are up to 3 times higher on average than anywhere else for the identical medicines. This unacceptable burden on hardworking American families ends with my administration. Most proposals the Trump administration has received to resolve this critical issue promised more of the same, shifting blame and requesting policy changes that would result in billions of dollars in handouts to industry. Moving forward, the only thing I will accept from drug manufacturers is a commitment that provides American families immediate relief from the vastly inflated drug prices and an end to the free ride of American innovation by European and other developed nations. Accordingly, I'm calling on Eli Lilly and Company and every manufacturer doing business in our great country to take the following actions within the next 60 days. Extend the most favored nation pricing to Medicaid, guarantee most favored nation pricing for newly launched drugs, return increased revenues abroad to American patients and taxpayers, provide for direct purchasing at most favored nation pricing. The President's team, including Secretary Kennedy and Administrator Oz, stand ready to implement these terms. The President expects to further engage with them immediately in good faith to deliver relief for American families. Make no mistake, a collaborative effort towards achieving global pricing parity would be the most effective path for companies, the government, and American patients. But if you refuse to step up, we will deploy every tool in our arsenal to protect American families from continued abusive drug pricing practices. Americans are demanding lower drug prices, and they need them today. Other nations have been freeloading on U.S. innovation for far too long, and it is time they pay their fair share. I look forward to your binding commitments to each of these goals by September 29th, 2025, and my team stands ready to assist with implementation questions. Thank you for your immediate attention to this vital national priority. Signed, President Donald J. Trump. Again, to the CEO of Eli Lilly. This letter, in its form, has been designed for each of the 17 major drug and pharmaceutical companies in the United States, and we're happy to provide you the full list. And I believe you will see all 17 letters popping on Truth Social very shortly, so you can look out for those, and I'm happy to take any further questions. Before we get to questions, I do have one other announcement from the White House and from the President. We are proud to announce that the construction of the new White House ballroom will begin. For 150 years, presidents, administrations, and White House staff have longed for a large event space on the White House complex that can hold substantially more guests than currently allowed. President Trump has expressed his commitment to solving this problem on behalf of future administrations and the American people. The White House is one of the most beautiful and historic buildings in the world. Yet the White House is currently unable to host major functions, honoring world leaders in other countries without having to install a large and unsightly tent approximately 100 yards away from the main building's entrance. The White House State Ballroom will be a much-needed and exquisite addition of approximately 90,000 total square feet of innately designed and carefully crafted space with a seated capacity of 650 people, which is a significant increase from the 200-person seated capacity in the East Room of the White House. In recent weeks, President Trump has held several meetings with members of the White House staff, the National Park Service, the White House Military Office, and the United States Secret Service to discuss design features and planning. President Trump has chosen McCreary Architects as the lead architect, which is well known for their classical architectural design and based right here in our nation's capital. The construction team will be headed by Clark Construction, and the engineering team will be led by AECOM. The project will begin in September 2025, and it is expected to be completed long before the end of President Trump's term. President Trump and other donors have generously committed to donating the funds necessary to build this approximately $200 million structure. The United States Secret Service will provide the necessary security enhancements and modifications. The White House ballroom will be substantially separated from the main building of the White House, but at the same time, its theme and architectural heritage will be almost identical. The site of the new ballroom will be where the small, heavily changed and reconstructed East Wing currently sits. The East Wing was constructed in 1902 and has been renovated and changed many times, with a second story added in 1942. White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles has provided the following statement. President Trump is a builder at heart and has an extraordinary eye for detail. The President and the Trump White House are fully committed to working with the appropriate organizations to preserve the special history of the White House while building a beautiful ballroom that can be enjoyed by future administrations and generations of Americans to come. In the White House, we will continue to provide the American public and all of you in the press with updates on this project at whitehouse.gov/visit. And if you go there shortly, you will be able to see renderings and visuals of what this ballroom will look like, both the exterior and the interior. I have provided some photos for all of you in the room today. This is the interior of the ballroom space. It's quite beautiful. And then this is the exterior of the ballroom space. As you can see, it will come off of the executive mansion as it sits today, and the East Wing will be modernized and renovated. We're happy to answer any further questions on that, Jennifer. Since you're so eager, I will go to you, but first, as always, I want to start with our new media seat, Ben Weingarten. Why don't you go ahead, Ben?
Thank you. In light of the release, the declassification of the annex to the Durham report today, beyond any potential prosecutions, the outcomes of which will likely be uncertain, what does the president believe justice for Russiagate ought to entail? Might it include restitution for those whose lives were upended as a consequence of Russiagate, and perhaps a major reorganization of the national security apparatus?
Well, I think a major organization of the national security apparatus, at least here at the White House within the National Security Council, has indeed taken place, and the president entrusts his current CIA director, John Ratcliffe, and our ODNI director, Tulsi Gabbard, to make the necessary changes to ensure classified intelligence, especially that could implement or hurt the national security of our country, does not make its way into the hands of irresponsible actors who want to politicize that intelligence for their own end. Since you brought up the declassification report that was put out by Senator Grassley today, I'm glad you brought it up, because this should be a story every outlet in this room should be covering. This is further evidence that Hillary Clinton approved the Russia hoax against President Trump. Her campaign financed it. Again, she approved it. And the FBI and the CIA were both weaponized to, as our director of CIA has said, accelerate this hoax against then candidate and former President Trump. To answer the heart of your question, the president wants to see justice served, and he trusts the Attorney General and the Department of Justice to implement that justice and hold these people accountable.
One more question, briefly,
Sure.
if I may, on a totally different topic. There's been legislation reintroduced in the House and Senate on designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. The Muslim Brotherhood is considered by many to be the fountainhead of Sunni Islamic supremacism from which Hamas and other groups have spawned, with a nexus to domestic organizations as well. Does the president support designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization?
Frankly, I'm not sure because I haven't talked to him, and I would never want to get ahead of the National Security Council on specific designations. It sounds like something this administration would support, but we can get a firm answer for you. How's that?
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Jennifer, go ahead. Eager beaver today.
How much of the East Wing will be torn down? The entire East Wing or just parts of it?
So the East Wing is going to be modernized. The necessary construction will take place. And for those who are housed in the East Wing, including the Office of the First Lady, the White House Military Office, the White House Visitors Offices, those offices will be temporarily relocated while the East Wing is being modernized.
And then on Israel-Gaza, there are some reports that negotiations with Hamas might not be continuing. Did you get any updates from Steve Witkoff on that?
I did. Special Envoy Witkoff is actively talking with our counterparts in Israel about that, and he wants to give some grace to the president so he can fully brief the president on what he's learning on the ground in both Israel and Gaza. But the president put out a very strong statement on Truth Social this morning, which I'm sure you saw, and he said the quickest way to end this entire conflict, the humanitarian crisis that we've seen, and the crisis in Israel that of course started on October 7th when Hamas brutally kidnapped and raped innocent Israelis, that terrible terrorist attack, is for Hamas to surrender, to release all of the hostages, and to end this conflict. And that's what the president wants to see. He's made that very clear. But the special envoy will be in Gaza tomorrow, as I shared with you previously. Josh.
Can you give us a little more clarity on the tariff timing? You said that the reciprocals will take effect tomorrow.
Yes.
Does that include the new auto rates, for instance, on Japan, Korea, the EU? Is this all coming effective tomorrow?
So some of the countries you just mentioned, Japan, South Korea, they have bespoke trade deals that the president cut, which, just to backtrack for a second, Josh, we promised that the president would negotiate with countries all around the world to cut tailor-made trade deals depending on those countries' challenges, how badly they've ripped off the United States of America and our manufacturing industry and our workforce in the past. And he has done that. Of our 18 major trading partners, 2/3 of those trading partners have a deal. We've sent out 17 letters to countries around the world. And the rest of those countries that either do not have a deal or have a letter, they will be hearing from this administration by the midnight deadline tonight. So yes, tomorrow, August 1st, the reciprocal rates will be going into effect. If more deals are cut between now and midnight, I will never count out the president. You've seen him do it before. He cut 3 deals in one day very recently. So we'll see what happens. I do know foreign leaders are ringing his phone, realizing this deadline is a real thing for them tomorrow, and they're bringing offers to the table.
And we're reporting that the president wants to meet David Solomon of Goldman Sachs today. Can you say what they'll discuss, if anything, in that meeting?
I won't discuss the president's private meetings from this podium, and it hasn't taken place yet unless he gives me liberty to do so.
And finally, have you talked with the president about his position on the stock trading ban bill before Congress? He obviously had pretty loaded comments about Senator Hawley. There's some reporting that they've since spoken. What is his position on the current status of that bill?
The president has spoken to Senator Hawley, who called him, and the president took that call. As the president said in the Roosevelt Room yesterday, conceptually, he of course supports the idea of ensuring that members of Congress and United States senators who are here for public service cannot enrich themselves. And the reason that this idea to put a ban on stock trading for members of Congress is even a thing is because of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she is rightfully criticized because she makes, I think, $174,000 a year, yet she has a net worth of approximately $413 million. In 2024, Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio, this was a fascinating statistic to me, grew 70% in 1 year in 2024, and her portfolio outperformed every single large hedge fund in that same year, and even more than doubled the returns of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. So I think the president stands with the American people on this. He doesn't want to see people like Nancy Pelosi enriching themselves off of public service and ripping off their constituents in the process. As for the mechanics of the legislation and how it will move forward, the White House continues to be in discussions with our friends on Capitol Hill. Emily, in a new seat today.
Thanks, Caroline. I wanted to ask about this report that the president wants to host a G20 meeting at
Trump Durrell. How is he going to do that considering all the preparations that have been going on in South Africa? And also, would that be seen as his business?
He's not going to South Africa.
Hosting this
He
kind
said
of
it.
meeting?
I would reject that premise entirely. We have announcements and details forthcoming on the G20, but my understanding is no firm announcement is ready to be made at this time. I did see the report, but we're not in a place to confirm it just yet.
Michelle? Just on the tariffs, what are the logistics for imposing those? Does the president have to sign an executive order tonight? What's the timing on that?
Yes, and he will be signing an executive order at some point this afternoon or later this evening. And as always, we'll keep you posted when that happens, and it will be released from our office.
And there's some of these countries that have they all had contact with U.S. officials, or are there some countries that are going to get letters that have had no opportunity to negotiate with the United States?
Well, there's a lot of countries that I know have reached out. I believe it's upwards of 200 countries around the world have reached out to the trade and tariff team. Of course, as I said previously and the president said, we're going to prioritize our key trading partners, which we have done. Like I said, of the 18, 2/3 of those we have cut these tailor-made deals with. But I do know that the trade team has been working around the clock to try to be in correspondence with as many countries as possible. But if they haven't heard from us yet, they will in the form of a letter or an executive order by midnight tonight. We'll go to the back. Sure, go ahead. In the back left.
Thank you.
Amanda, yes.
Thank you very much. I
Oh,
have a talk ask about the U.S.
Amanda, you can go.
U.S. and South Korea tariff negotiations. At the tariff negotiation between South Korea and the United States concluded yesterday. President Trump stated on his SNS, Truth Social, that he would announce the specific details of the investment in the United States at the South Korea United States Summit in 2 weeks. My question is this tariff negotiation a final agreement, or is further negotiation necessary?
Well, yes, as you know, the president met with representatives of the Republic of South Korea here at the White House yesterday, and they did, in fact, reach a deal. And South Korea will pay a 15% tariff rate, including 15% on autos, while providing historic market access to American goods like autos and rice. Korea will purchase $100 billion in American energy by 2028. And the centerpiece of this deal is that South Korea has agreed to invest $350 billion at the president's direction to revitalize American industry. 90% of those profits will go to the United States government to help pay down our debt and for other matters at the president's choosing. So it was a very successful meeting yesterday.
When is set up the further U.S.-South Korea summit day?
I'll get you something on that. I don't have it at my fingertips. Okay, Amanda.
Thank you, Caroline. There are a number of congressional Republicans who have raised the alarm about the fact that roughly 80% of pharmaceuticals are either manufactured or their precursors are manufactured in either China or India. There are some pieces of legislation, some recommendations, which include either onshoring, nearshoring, or friendshoring, those components of that. Do you know if the president intends to throw the weight of the executive behind that?
I don't have any updates for you at this time. I do have an update on our EU trade deal. I stand corrected. It's not $60 billion in investments. It's $600 billion in investments. I want to make that very clear. And I personally watched the president behind closed doors with the European president in Scotland negotiating this deal. And he got the most juice out of that squeeze that he could. And he was constantly looking out for America's interests. So I just wanted to clarify that one point. Deanna.
Thanks, Caroline. For the countries that don't have a deal yet, should we be looking at the April 2nd chart at all? Or is he negotiating and talking about having a set tariff rate, 10%, 20%?
Those discussions are taking place with the trade team today, and again, we'll provide further guidance with that executive order once it is signed, and the answer to that question will be in that executive order.
Is he looking to provide any more extensions today after his phone call with Mexico? Is there any other conversations like that?
I do know that other foreign leaders around the world have reached out, and if the president decides to share the conclusions of those calls with all of you, he will do so himself. But I do want to reiterate what the president said about Mexico. Mexico is still paying tariffs. They're paying a 25% tariff on fentanyl, 25% tariff on cars, a 50% tariff on steel, aluminum, and copper. And additionally, Mexico has agreed to immediately terminate its non-tariff trade barriers, of which there are many. And as the president said, we will continue to talk to Mexico over the next 90 days with the goal of signing a larger trade deal. The key to this, again, is Mexico has agreed to terminate those non-tariff barriers and to continue to work with us in good faith. Mexico is a very unique situation of all the other countries around the world because, of course, we share our southern border with Mexico, which we've seen an increase in cooperation between Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum and our administration on clamping down on drug trafficking and human trafficking at the southern border. We appreciate those efforts and will continue to work in good faith and to continue to have these trade discussions as well. Joey.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. Just clarifying a previous question. President Trump has indicated he's been looking at either 15% or 20% baseline universal tariff. Has he landed on one of those yet?
I won't get ahead of the president on that baseline announcement.
And then secondly, what did Treasury Secretary Bessent mean yesterday when he called the new Trump accounts for newborns a, quote, backdoor to privatizing Social Security? Does the administration view this new Trump accounts as a way to, in the long term, perhaps privatize Social Security?
What the Secretary of Treasury was saying and what this administration believes is that these Trump newborn accounts, which is an incredibly creative and great provision that was in the One Big Beautiful Bill for newborn babies and families and future generations of Americans, will help supplement, not substitute, Social Security. The Trump administration is wholeheartedly committed to protecting Social Security. The president did it in his first term. He's doing it again in this term. But these newborn accounts are another revenue stream for young people to watch their money grow throughout their lives and to one day be able to access those funds so they can hopefully build a home and live the American dream. Jake.
Just one follow-up on tariffs and then one not. Is the president at all considering extending the August 12th China deadline at all? Is that in consideration?
So look, on China, you heard from the president on Air Force One when we were returning from Scotland. You've heard from the Treasury Secretary as well, Ambassador Jamieson Greer. They just spent 2 days in Geneva for their third round of talks with China. And the current policy, the current trade program that we have going with China right now as it stands will decrease our deficit by $5 billion this year. So we are moving in the right direction when it comes to China. And Secretary Bessent and Ambassador Greer continue to be in direct communication with our Chinese counterparts.
But is the deadline, is an extension on the table potentially from the August 12th deadline as it stands?
I don't think so, but I'll let the Secretary of Treasury speak on that because he's leading these negotiations. Reagan, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. There's growing frustration that more of Trump's nominees haven't been confirmed. Why does the president think Senate Republicans are so behind, and has he had any further conversations with Leader Thune about it?
The president has had many conversations with his friends in the United States Senate about advancing his nominees, his judicial nominees through this process. It is critical that we get these good attorneys in these positions so that we can end the weaponization of justice, so we can have true law and order in our country. It's unfortunate the Democrats are playing political games, but the president has made it clear to Senate Republicans they need to do everything in their power to advance the president's nominees as well. Kelly, go ahead.
Caroline, thank you. 2 questions real quickly.
Sure.
Nigeria. Congressman Chris Smith, Republican from New Jersey, is calling upon the President of the United States to do something in terms of imposing perhaps sanctions on Nigeria for the persecution of Christians living in the northern part of Nigeria by radical Islamic groups. Has he contacted the President yet? And do you know if there's any action that the President will take?
I'm not tracking a call between the president and the head of Nigeria. I know the president wholeheartedly condemns the persecution of Christians or, frankly, of people of any faith all over the world, but I don't have any updates for you in terms of sanctions in this part of the world.
My second question, Caroline, deals with immigration here in America. As you know, a lot of deportation has been going on. ICE has been going after violent criminals that are here illegally, and rightly so. In the midst of that, there are some evangelical pastors who are stating that it may have gone to a point of being indiscriminate and actually getting innocent people, like members of the clergy. Has the president and has ICE looked at that to see how they can actually go after those violent criminals, but also make sure that members of the clergy are still not being deported?
Well, look, the administration has always maintained the position that anyone who illegally crosses our nation's borders is subject to deportation. That's just the law of the land, and we must be a nation that enforces our laws. But the priority from ICE, of course, is to deport, detain, arrest, and remove violent illegal aliens and criminals from our country. And they have been doing that at the rate of thousands of illegal violent criminals every single week, especially in Democrat-run sanctuary cities where these illegal violent criminals have been given a safe haven and have essentially been immune from our nation's laws under the previous administration. That's not happening anymore because of this president and Secretary Noem in the Department of Homeland Security. And we are going to be a nation of laws. And as we've said repeatedly, if you came here illegally, you are subject to deportation. But the priority are those public safety threats that we must remove from our communities.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Two questions. So what Hamas hardens its position and Israel provides aid? Do you have any new information on the hostages that need aid too? And second question, we heard President Trump criticize President Macron and Prime Minister Starmer for their statement about recognizing a Palestinian state. What is the president's position on recognizing a Palestinian state, and will he recognize Israeli sovereignty in Judea and Samaria?
I can answer both of those questions for you. On the second question about a Palestinian state, the president expressed his displeasure and his disagreement with the leaders of France, the United Kingdom, and Canada. He feels as though that's rewarding Hamas at a time where Hamas is the true impediment to a ceasefire and to the release of all of the hostages. So to your first question, the president wants to see all of the hostages released. He cares deeply about this. He has met with many of the former hostages, many of the families of those who have loved ones who are still being held hostage in Gaza. I have met with them too. It is absolutely devastating what these poor people have been through, and the president is always thinking about them, and that's why he's designated his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, who's doing a tremendous job to release the hostages and to end this conflict. But the president has always said the last remaining hostages, now there are 20 living hostages in Gaza, will always be the hardest because Hamas is unfortunately using these innocent people as bargaining chips. But nevertheless, we are committed to seeing this come to an end. Elizabeth.
Thanks, Caroline. Part of the settlement with Brown prohibits it from performing transgender procedures or prescribing hormone, puberty blockers, that type of thing. Will eliminating these types of procedures be a priority for the Trump administration in negotiations with other universities?
I can tell you that ending the chemical castration of children in our country is a priority of this administration. We've talked to many of these universities about it, but the president has also taken very strong action to cut off the funding for any medical institution in this country that provides those barbaric procedures. The Brown University agreement, since you brought it up, is yet another win to root out anti-Semitic behavior on our nation's college campuses and unlawful racial discrimination. Brown has agreed to no longer allow unlawful racial discrimination in admissions or university programming. They have agreed to provide access to all relevant data and information to rigorously assess compliance with its commitment to merit-based admissions, and they will pay $50 million over 10 years to state workforce development organizations that comply with anti-discrimination laws, supporting regional economic growth and career opportunities. Brown will also adopt the definitions of male and female from President Trump's executive order, defending women and gender ideology extremism for women's sports, programming, facilities, and housing. Brown will no longer perform gender reassignment surgeries on minors or prescribe them puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones. And Brown will take steps to improve the campus climate for Jewish students and combat anti-Semitism on their campus. This is yet another huge win for American students and for those who love our country and want to abide by our country's laws. On the topic of defending women from gender ideology extremism and helping women's sports, the president will be signing an executive order at 4 o'clock today with some very famous professional athletes whom I'm sure you all know. And that executive order will be focused on strengthening athletics in our country and making America healthy again. And we are going to re-implement the presidential fitness test in America's schools, which is, I think, something all Americans can get behind. So you'll hear from the president in 2 hours, and we will see you all there. Thank you.
Uh-oh. That was quick. That was fast from the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. All right, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Join the membership. It is $4.99. God bless you for being here. You guys are the best. Thank you for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I didn't even know I was going to stream this morning, but for some reason, you guys just make it so much fun to be here. What else? Uh-oh. Hillary Clinton. All right, let's check this out before we wrap it up. Let's check this out before we wrap it up. All right, you ready for this? Here we go.
Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley is out with a new batch of documents pertaining to the Trump-Russia investigation. And the newly declassified documents were allegedly held in burn bags in a secret room at FBI headquarters. Those would be containers that hold classified docs meant to be destroyed after a specified time. It's 29 pages, an annex or addendum to the 2023 Durham report, exposing a reported Clinton campaign plot to falsely tie President Trump to Russia. Here's Chairman Grassley.
I think we need maximum transparency on all the schemes that were going on 10 years ago to either stop Trump from being elected or after he was elected to ruin his presidency. And that's what this Durham report is all about. It was all effort of total distraction and to make it look like Russia was playing a very major role in helping Trump to be elected, and now we know none of that was true. And now with this Durham report annex out, it finally proves that the FBI was covering up.
Look, the story started breaking right before those comments, so those were Grassley's first reactions to this less than an hour ago. Justice correspondent David Spunt now. David.
Well, hi, Harris. Special Counsel John Durham's investigation into the origins of the Trump-Russia narrative began in 2019, ended 4 years later in 2023. Now, he took two people to trial, lost both times, but he did, Harris, secure a plea deal with a former FBI lawyer. Durham's final report, a 300-page document. Here he is in 2023.
Our findings were sobering. I can tell you, having spent 40 years plus as a federal prosecutor, they were particularly sobering to me.
Now, for the first time, we're seeing this declassified now annex. It's 29 pages. It discusses more allegations and information about the Clinton campaign's alleged efforts to discredit then-candidate Trump. Durham obtained emails via Russian intelligence, and the emails were allegedly written by a man named Leonard with the Open Society Foundation. That's the foundation tied to George Soros. According to the annex, Leonard writes about a Clinton campaign advisor named Julianne. She's also referred to by Julie and Julia. One of the emails says, Julie says it will be a long-term affair to demonize Putin and Trump. Now it is good for a post-convention bounce. Later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire. In another email obtained by Durham, Leonard allegedly wrote, HRC, meaning Hillary Rodham Clinton, approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. That should distract people from her own missing email, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level. Now, Mr. Durham interviewed Julie, who told him that she didn't draft or recall receiving any of these Leonard emails. The annex goes on to explain that the FBI was fully alerted to the possibility that at least some of the information it received about the Trump campaign might have origins with the Clinton campaign or Russian disinformation, but the FBI apparently dismissed that information, quote, as not credible without any investigative steps actually having been taken to either corroborate or disprove the allegations. I want to be clear, we've reached out to those mentioned in this annex that I just brought up in this report, but we have yet to hear back. Harris?
David, you are on it. Like I said, it has barely been an hour that this is breaking, so thank you very much for the update on it.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. Shout out to Dr. Luke, the GOAT, and shout out to the moderators, MVP Jet, Terry, the Bucket Master, Mr. Booski, and everybody else. John 5, CRXR. God bless y'all. Actually, Dr. Luke, the GOAT, was probably the first person to tune into the show today. When we started around 11, he was the first person to tune into the show. And he's been giving super chat. I think he's given 2 super chats today. So shout out to Dr. Luke, the GOAT, the real GOAT, okay? And the real doctor. because we have a fake doctor. we got a fake doctor in the chat. Okay. All right, here we go.
All right, so I want to get to some breaking news right now in this Russia matter that started 10 years ago in Washington, D.C. At the moment, newly declassified documents have been made public. These are from the Durham report. How much additional light will be learned about the origins of the Trump-Russia investigation is something we are trying to find out. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley is here. He chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee. And Senator, thank you for your time today. Want to know what you learned? I just want our audience to know that apparently, based on my reading of it, these documents were stored in an annex. I don't know where that is or who oversees it. And they were being kept in burn bags, which I assume is material that's set to be incinerated. What's the truth? What's happening? What did you see in the documents?
Well, you see, you're bringing attention to the burn bag to me for the first time, and I'll leave that up to the FBI to describe, but I think it's evidence of the great depth that the deep state will go to cover up weaponization that was going on in the FBI and the executive branch of government generally under the Obama administration. And I want to thank Kash Patel of the FBI and Pan Bondi, our Attorney General, for releasing these documents, because after 8 years, and it took us 3 years to get this information, but after 8 years, I think we need maximum transparency on all the schemes that were going on 10 years ago to either stop Trump from being elected or after he was elected to ruin his presidency. And that's what this Durham report is all about. And it gives information that Comey FBI had 10 years ago that they never followed up on. And it actually brings attention to the fact that there was either a Clinton conspiracy to make this happen, or a Russian disinformation. But either way, it was an attempt to stop Trump, and it also proves that the FBI had a hand in it. And now, after these 8 years, 3 years of my trying to get the document, we know that there was the Steele dossier paid for by the Democrats and the Clinton campaign, that it was all effort of total distraction, and to make it look like Russia was playing a very major role in helping Trump to be elected. And now we know none of that was true. And now with this Durham report annex out, it finally proves that the FBI was covering up.
Wow. Okay, here is what we've got from a source with Fox Digital. Let me go ahead and read this statement. It just came in. Ultimately, the release of the classified annex will lend more credibility to the assertion that there was a coordinated plan inside the U.S. government to help the Clinton campaign stir up controversy connecting Trump to Russia. You essentially just said that, Senator. That's what I heard from your answer. Sir, is there a smoking gun in this?
Well, I think the smoking gun kind of dovetails in with things that Tulsi Gabbard has put out in the recent 2 weeks, and things that we had with the Crossfire Hurricane Index that I released a couple weeks ago. Kind of all dovetails into the same thing, but it gets back to the fact that whether you have a Republican or Democrat administration, that there's cover-up, and we shouldn't have it. Transparency, or the public's business ought to be public, and what the FBI does ought to be public as long as their investigations are done. Or if they aren't investigating, if they aren't doing their job, then it should be exposed, and this Durham annex exposes that.
Okay, So John Brennan and James Clapper tried to get ahead of this story because they've got an op-ed already today in the New York Times. The headline reads, "Let's set the record straight on Russia in 2016." And underneath it says, "We find it deeply regrettable that the administration continues to perpetuate the fictitious narrative that Russia did not interfere in the 2016 election." They say the focus should instead be on the fact that Russia routinely meddles in our national elections. What would you say to those two men today?
I think that they have been in the news so often recently, and along with Comey, of trying to information out that they've been in the center of all this conspiracy, that they're trying to cover their hind end. That's all I can say about that.
One last question. There's a headline now at foxnews.com that George Soros has a connection in these documents. Do you know of that? Is that true?
No, I don't, but I can find that out for you, and I'll be glad to get back to you with an answer on that.
Okay. Senator, thank you. We will see very soon what you have found.
You.
Chuck Grassley.
Uh-oh. George Soros. Here we go. Kamala Harris is not running. She's not running for the governor position in California. Check this out.
President Kamala Harris will not run for California governor next year, leaving open the possibility that she could mount a third run for the White House in 2028. She said in a statement, over the last 6 months, I have spent time reflecting on this moment in our nation's history and the best way for me to continue fighting for the American people and advancing values and ideals I hold dear. I've given serious thought to asking the people of California for the privilege to serve as their governor. I love this state, its people, and its promise. It's my home. But after deep reflection, I've decided that I will not run for governor in this election. Patrick, your reaction to that? Do you hope that that means that she will run again for president of the United States?
I don't think she'll run for president of the United States. Is my gut reading the statement, live here. I thought she was, really considering governor, but. I think she wants to serve in different capacities, is my understanding. But, I don't speak for her. I'm not her spokesperson. But let's face it. I mean, she just went through a grueling, presidential race. Her second, cycle of she ran for president, obviously, 5 years ago, and then again this past cycle. So I don't think there'll be a third time, if you're asking me my opinion. But I will tell you that, I think she has an incredibly important voice, and I hope she continues to serve in the public interest in some capacity, whether it's in the private sector or elsewhere.
Tommy, your reaction to this news about Kamala Harris, the former VP?
I honestly don't think she could win, even in California. California is fed up with their failed leadership, and they aren't going to go from one failed leader, Gavin Newsom, to another in Kamala Harris. And I think that she even understands she couldn't win there. I don't think that she's going to run for president again, but I'll tell you this, she's also been largely absent, even in California, with everything that California has gone through, with the immigration riots, of course, the wildfires. That is her home state, and she did not take the opportunity to stand on that stage and speak to those issues in any meaningful way. She just had an opportunity to talk to the future voters of America at a summit, and she sent in a virtual message. This woman is not serious about running for anything, and maybe that's a good thing for her party and for the country.
Quick question to you, Patrick, before I bring in Steve Hilton. I mean, right now there's so much focus, and this, of course, would probably change a bit in the coming years, but right now there's so much focus on what did you know and how much did you understand about the declining abilities of President Biden? And I have to believe, if you're looking at a scenario where you're on a debate stage answering questions or you're in interviews, she would be pressed on this mightily.
No doubt. And can I just say real quick, I disagree with Tommy. I think if she would have ran for governor, she would have won, but that's not the question. The question you're asking is, I do think, Martha, that she'd be asked those questions, those tough questions. And I think that's why a lot of Democrats, a lot of Americans are ready to turn the page. I think they're looking for new generation of leaders, both in the Democratic and Republican Party. And I think you're going to see those leaders emanate from the states, in states like Pennsylvania and Maryland and elsewhere.
Just before I let you go, does Mandami represent that new generation to you, Patrick?
I think it comes from the states, not necessarily the cities. How about that?
All right, guys. Tommy Lahren, Patrick Murphy, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity.
A lot of people are saying that Kamala Harris not running for the governor position in California is one of the best decisions she's ever made. But I'm thinking that she's coming back in 2028 to go against J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio or Ron DeSantis. All right, here we go. Letitia James.
Paul Morrow is here joining me, retired NYPD inspector, attorney, Fox News contributor. Paul, great to have you with us today. It seems like this is an extension there's sort of two avenues here. You've got the White House trying to extend their reach of DOGE, essentially, of figuring out where the waste, fraud, and abuse is in a number of different agencies and benefits. And then you've got Letitia James, who now has, put this up on the screen if you can, at least 26 lawsuits heading after President Trump. And remember, she said she was always committed to this. Here's a look back at her talking about that. Let's watch.
No one is above the law, including this illegitimate president. And so, I look forward to going into the office of Attorney General every day, suing him, defending your rights, and then going home.
I say one name, Donald Trump. That should motivate you.
Going to get him. So this is the very latest. Your thoughts on this, Paul?
Well, first of all, I mean, look, there's a couple of ways to look at this. Let's do legal and then let's do practical. First of all, legally, all right? She is an officer of the court. She's a lawyer. She's come into office specifically saying, I am going to use my office to target a particular person. That's not how our law works. And the idea here that she seems to be leveraging is the idea, well, you show me the person, I'll show you the crime. She started with the perpetrator and then looked for the crime. Now, I have to tell you something. If you do that at the prosecutorial level so blatantly in another context, as in a place where they are not going to be so fully supportive of you going after Donald Trump, you will get crucified. There's a very good chance you're going to lose your law license. And I'm very surprised that one of the tactics that the Trump administration has not taken is to file formal complaints against her with the New York State Bar. Because from where I sit, she's very close to an ethics violation by saying, hey, I'm going to be the AG, and my principal role is going to be to go after one guy.
So let's talk about the other side of this, which is the White House and the administration's desire to cut waste and fraud. So they look at the SNAP program, and when you look at the 3 states that are bringing these lawsuits, including Michigan and New York, they have a higher level of SNAP usage than other states in the country, and they also have a larger number of migrants, a lot of sanctuary cities in all of these jurisdictions. So what about going after the use of SNAP?
Of course. Listen, they're going to lose this lawsuit, all right? It's established federal law that the federal government has the right to withhold funding from states if those states are not complying with federal regulations. And it's been established for a long time, going back now almost 50 years. And they know it. This is performative. She's up for re-election next year. And think about the absurdity of this on its face. Essentially, what the federal government is saying is, we just want to know who we're giving the money to.
Right.
That's it. What are we supposed to just blindly throw checks out the window? I might as well open the door and just cut the checks at the Federal Reserve. Just throw the checks out the window, because essentially that's what this. They're saying you're not allowed to ask where this money is going. And I was saying I wanted to do legal, then I wanted to do practical. I got to tell you something. As working here in New York City, the number is much higher in terms of how many people get SNAP. It's like 1 in 5. All right. I used to make these arrests. You have to search the prison.
That's 20% of the population.
Yeah, But
20% of the population, I don't believe, is under the poverty level where you're supposed to be able to collect SNAP, and they're not here on asylum or as refugees.
I'm going to give you the exact number. You have 1.8 million, and there's probably 8.5 million people, however you couch it, in New York City. So you would arrest people, they'd have 5, 6, 7, 8 benefits cards, all in different names. And the way it works on the ground level is you take what you need, but generally what they do is you're allowed to buy certain staples, bread, milk, things like that. They buy that stuff ostensibly, but what they really do is get $100 in benefits from the bodega owner. The bodega owner takes 50%, they keep $50, and they go buy drugs. All right. Now, that's not everybody, of course. I want people saying, oh, everybody who's using SNAP benefits is a drug addict. I'm not saying that, but I can tell you that the level of scammery is.
Shout out to Crunch the Grace Hopper. Shout out to Crunch the Grace Hopper. Thank you for the super chat. He says Ruskies can't even effectively mount a viable espionage effort. However, CCP's 70 years old wokeness campaign ripped it divide and not conquer objectives. Shout out to Crunch the Grace Hopper. Thank you for the super chat. Here we go.
mind-numbing. You can't believe it, and you would have those moments where you say, why am I coming to work? Why am I should just get a bunch of benefit cards?
But if you clear out those who are using it for nefarious purposes and you allow people who legitimately have the right to receive it, you're going to save a lot of money across the country.
The way
That's the
it's
goal.
supposed to work. Of course
Exactly.
that's supposed to work that way, and we'd be able to help the people who really need it. We're getting ripped off. Why is that such a bad thing for Donald Trump to look into?
I mean, all of these jurisdictions should be looking at their books and making sure that they're not wasting money.
Bottom line.
But they don't want to do it. Paul, thank you very much. Paul Morrow.
Ooh, Letitia James. Well, I gotta tell y'all, man, this is not right. You're running for the AG, and literally, you're talking about getting Donald Trump. That's all you're trying to get with your power, with your office. So you mean to tell me that when you become the AG, which she had become the AG, all she wanted to get was Trump. And now Trump is the 47th president of the United States, and she is in trouble right now, allegedly. All right, here we go. Jasmine Crockett.
What a Crockett. That's the focus of tonight's angle.
What a
All right, Cory Booker in the Senate, he's had enough.
What a Crockett.
His party is a mess, and he knows it.
The Democratic Party needs a wake-up call. It's time for Democrats to have a backbone. It's time for us to fight. It's time for us to draw lines. When are we going to stand together? If we don't stand as Democrats, we deserve to lose.
Uh-oh.
Oh, but come on. I mean, sure, it may seem like the party is rudderless. It may seem like the Democrats are leaderless. But obviously, Cory Booker hasn't spent enough time watching Jasmine.
You have been clearly one of the rising stars of the Democratic Party. Why do you think you have been able to connect with people, especially young people, because you have a big following among younger voters?
I don't sound like a politician all the time. Instead, I sound more relatable and like a frustrated American. As everything is kind of falling apart around us, we still have some very good political figures that are seemingly holding it together in front of the camera, and I'm looking like, what the hell?
Well, that's what we're saying, too. Well, The Atlantic just published a lengthy profile of Crockett, calling her a Democrat for the Trump era. The piece notes that her colleagues still haven't learned what, to her, is obvious. Democrats need sharper, fiercer communicators. The profile's author, Elaine Godfrey, says Crockett told her, quote, "It's like there's one clear person in this race that has the largest social media following." In other words, hello. Well, she's only a two-term congresswoman representing Texas's 30th district, a sprawling area that includes South Dallas and Tarrant County. She's a hardcore leftist. Her MO is to be a political bomb thrower, usually with race front and center.
The only people that are crying are the mediocre white boys. This is why they don't want us to have education, because they don't want any more Kamala Harrises. They don't want any more Jasmine Crockett's. But I got news for them. I don't care what they do. We will fight to the end to make sure that we get our due.
Will we get our due?
Okay.
Well, she tries to play the role of the oppressed. But Jasmine Crockett grew up quite comfortably, raised by her parents in St. Louis until their divorce. Her dad was a postal worker. She attended private schools, like the prestigious all-girls Catholic school named Rosati Kane, and graduated from the Mary Institute and St. Louis Country Day School before that. Then it was on to Rhodes College in Memphis. The tuition and housing for her final year was approximately $29,000. She went on to graduate from the University of Houston Law School. Not bad. And now she'll say just about anything to get attention.
Every little hate that they spew your way, my way, it is because they know that they see how beautiful we are inside and out. If they could, they would throw me back in chains.
I mean, it's so absurd. It would be funny if it wasn't so sad. But this is what the Democrat Party has come to. They have zero solutions, only grievance and gutter talk. And the bombastic and grammatically creative Crockett has mastered both.
Listen.
And this is the thing, right? When nobody's talking about the fact that Jasmine Crockett also went to a private school, and there's nothing wrong with going to a private school. Kudos to her. parent. That's what her parent wanted for her, and she got it. They worked hard for her to go to a private school, and now she's a congresswoman. Her parent did what had to be done, and they have, in my opinion, a successful child, because Jasmine Crockett is known by a lot of people across the United States. Okay? And she's a congresswoman from Texas. However, a lot of people do not give Donald Trump the same grace. Oh, he's a rich kid. He's always been rich. His parent gave him everything he has. Isn't that what every parent wants for their kids? We want our kids to be better than we are. That's why we work hard. That's why we take them to the best schools. That's why we give them the opportunity that we never had. So why would the public, especially the people on the left, talk about the fact that, well, Trump's father gave him millions of dollars. He took over the family business. Of course, that's what you want for your kid. You want to give your kid, you want to pass down your family business to your children. That's what you want. I don't see anybody talking about Jasmine Crockett going to a private school, because that's what every parent wants for their kids. You want a better life for your kids. So what is so bad about Trump's parent passing down wealth to him? What?
He up there, he's hearing all kinds of nonsense and bullshit. And we ain't gonna sit for that. Yeah, we in love with Putin. What is happening? This is a terrible nightmare. Somebody slap me and wake me the up. I would tell him to grow a spine and stop being Putin's hoe.
Yeah, Putin's hoe. It's all performative, right? Her sound, her swagger. But just 3 years ago, when she was first campaigning for office, she sounded a little more buttoned up.
It's good to see you in the new year. You know, no one could have told me that when I went down to Austin, now it looks like a little bit over a year ago, that I would be running for Congress. It's just not what my plan was. But what I've always decided is that I would step up when there was a need.
Oh, how noble and sacrificial of her. Which is the real Jasmine Crockett, though? Well, the call for public service came and Jasmine answered. But back to that Atlantic profile, they saw something else in Crockett, a raging narcissism. And for a woman who claims to be so tough, she has exceedingly thin skin. They described her as highly conscious of her self-presentation. Crockett wore acrylic nails painted with the word resist and a set of heavy lashes over her brown eyes. The lock screen on her phone is a headshot of herself. And Crockett apparently thinks she should be able to control to whom a journalist speaks when they're actually reporting a profile. 4 days before this story was published, Crockett called me to express frustration that I had reached out to so many House members without telling her first. She told me, shutting down the profile and revoking all permissions. Yeah. And yet another gem that speaks to Crockett's highly racialized view of the world. From the same profile, Crockett said that Hispanic Trump supporters had almost like a slave mentality. I asked Crockett whether she had ever regrets about her public comments. She raised her eyebrows and replied, "Obsessed dimwit." But on the trade issue, come on, at least we know whose side she's on.
The fact that I'm rooting for Canada and I'm rooting for Mexico a lot is really wild. But they are really the ones that are speaking truth to power right now.
Send me a memo when the phrase truth to power is retired.
Uh-oh.
But there are some Democrats in leadership who apparently aren't at all amused by her. Last month, Crockett was forced to drop her bid for a key post on the House Oversight Committee. The defeat is a latest blow to Crockett's leadership ambitions. She lost her November bid for Democratic Policy and Comms Committee chair, a high-ranking position in the caucus that helped shape the party's messaging strategy. According to news reports, some Hill Democrats find her messaging style, quote, overzealous. But the messaging is really the least of her problems, because Democrats like Crockett have convinced themselves that Trump is successful because he's controversial, because he uses blunt language. Trump's real success
No.
comes from his policies.
Facts.
His policies simply make the average American's life better. They lead to more peace and more prosperity, a better border situation. Because Trump fights for the little guy. He doesn't just talk about it, he does it. But Democrats like Crockett? Well, they fight for a very, very small subset of elites and activists by advocating for illegals, DEI, transgenderism, and yes, for nuts like Randy Weingarten.
Oh.
Now, this is...
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Look, Jasmine Crockett really has done well for herself. And that's just the facts, okay? That is the facts. Now, you may not like her, but that doesn't stop the fact that she's done well for herself. So I guess, going to the private school and all that she had to go through as a kid. And she also spoke about if they wanted to, they would have thrown her back in chains. Bro, you were never in chains. Come on, bro. You were never in chains. Relax, bro. Chill.
Here with more. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, former FBI special agent, Fox News contributor Nicole Parker. Nicole, burn bags, not a common term that the average person may know. You're very familiar with it because of your time in the FBI.
That's right. So first of all, I'm not shocked by anything that we're hearing, having worked there for over a dozen years. Absolutely nothing shocks me about what may have happened at the FBI. That's one of the reasons that I left. But when I hear burn bag, that's common lingo inside the FBI. All documentation, documents, anything that you basically use or touch at the FBI goes into a burn bag. And sometimes you shred the documents, sometimes you just put them straight into the burn bag. But those documents are literally escorted to an incinerator by armed agents. I mean, it's a very serious process because we must take our documentation very seriously at the FBI, and that is what they do. And so to hear that documentation was found at FBI headquarters in burn bags that were never taken to an incinerator is baffling, but at the same time, it's not baffling, Sean. And there are a number of reasons that could have occurred. I wouldn't be shocked if it was just someone that wasn't doing their job, or someone that just put them in a room and thought, you know what, someone else will deal with that. Or if it was someone who is, high level in the FBI and isn't actually familiar with what the rank and file agents do in taking things to the incinerator to have burned. There are a number of reasons that this could have occurred, but the key is that these documents were found.
Let's talk about this, Greg Jarrett. We spent 3 long years unpeeling every layer of the onion on this story. Seems kind of sloppy that if they had incriminating materials, which is what I'm assuming here they found in these burn bags, that they didn't take care of those and eliminate that. And I bet that's causing a lot of agita and anxiety in the minds of a number of names that would be very familiar to this audience.
Yeah, it could be somebody who didn't want to be a party to a crime by burning them, because attempting to destroy or conceal evidence is the crime of obstruction of justice, Sean, if it's done to hide documents relevant to a criminal or congressional investigation or in anticipation of one. So these documents are not just relevant, they may be pivotal. So that's point number 1 on obstruction. Point number 2 is Senator Charles Grassley has been investigating the collusion hoax and those behind it for years, which is why these burn bag documents were turned over to him. So the question becomes, who ordered the planned burning? Why did they do it? Although the why to me seems readily self-evident. Whoever was involved was trying to conceal evidence that they didn't like, things that might implicate them. And it doesn't matter if the material was classified, you still cannot destroy it if it relates to an investigation. Go ahead.
One of the documents FBI officials allegedly found in the burn bag were the classified annex, to former special counsel John Durham's final report, which includes the underlying intelligence that he reviewed. Why would that be so critical? To me, that's critical.
Because it likely reveals many of the government actors who instigated and corruptly spread the phony collusion narrative despite knowing it was totally untrue. So, it's the usual suspects. Was it Comey and his acolytes at the FBI, Brennan's team of CIA partisans? Was it Clapper, the Obama White House? They're all reasonable suspects based on the damning evidence revealed in just the last couple of weeks, leading to an official criminal investigation. And, in my 2 books, I identified all the people who appear to have lied under oath, committed crimes. So it doesn't surprise me that incriminating evidence of lies and lying people was slated for the incinerator. There was never a Trump-Russia collusion conspiracy, but there was a conspiracy to frame Donald Trump for collusion.
We're going to continue to follow this story. It's getting more interesting by the day. We expect
it's only going to get even more interesting because at this point, if Donald Trump had to go from the courthouse to the campaign grounds while he was running for election, his home being raided, attempt on his life. Look, it's only going to get even more interesting with this whole burn bag situation with that the FBI has been finding new evidence. So look, this next 3.5 years is going to be interesting. All right, here we go. Scott Bassett.
The Chinese are tough negotiators. We're tough too. I believe that we have the makings of a deal. Ambassador Greer and myself will be speaking to President Trump today about whether we will be doing the role by the August 12th deadline. There's still a few technical details to be worked out on the Chinese side between us. I'm confident that it will be done, but it's not 100% done.
Okay, so that's Treasury Secretary Scott Bassett earlier this morning expressing confidence that a trade deal with China is within reach. Maria Bartiromo, anchor of Mornings with Maria on Fox Business and Sunday Morning Futures on Fox News Channel, joins us now to break this all down. Okay, let's put this on the board here. The snapshot of our economy as of today and all these Trump wins. We've got the trade deals, the latest being the one with South Korea. Better than expected GDP numbers. The economy grew at 3% last quarter. Don't have this up on there, I don't think, but consumer spending is up. Better than expected. If tariffs are bringing in a lot of money. All I hear in my head are Democrats screaming recession, recession, recession. That's not happening.
No, it's not happening at all. In fact, everybody that I speak with, money managers, business managers, CEOs, they all say the same thing. America is back, and America is hot, and it has everything to do with President Trump's policies and everything to do with the expectations of where things are going. Look, very few people expected a 3% quarter that we just got in the GDP, and now you're seeing hundreds of billions of dollars come back invested in America because President Trump is doing these deals. He's doing tax deals, trade deals, peace deals, and it's working. You're seeing it. People are feeling better about things. And I think even skeptics of President Trump's policies in the past are coming around. Just the other day, you saw Ken Langone say, look, when you're wrong, you're wrong. I have to admit it. So I think that when you actually look at what he's doing, there was a whole message to, the plan, a message to the madness. And he's actually doing lots of deals. We'll see where China is. China has been tougher than the other countries. It's been a while, and they also have been a very bad actor on the global stage.
In that interview, Besson sounded confident they were going to get a deal. That would be significant.
China needs the U.S. more than the U.S. needs China, but let's not forget, we do need China right now. We've got our supply chains in China. We still, rely on 90% of our underlying components for prescription drugs made in China. I'd like to know what the congressmen who were yelling Russia, 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 and Russia collusion were doing when this was actually in the formation process, when China was eating our lunch, when during this last 10 years that President Trump was being attacked by his political enemies, because that was a dereliction of duty.
On China, really quickly, if I can ask you, though, but we're obviously still watching what's going to happen with the Russia sanctions. How much, all of these trade deals, how much will that influence China and put pressure on them? And then also, if there are those secondary sanctions that go into place and that will impact China because they buy a ton of oil from Russia, how does that play a factor?
I think it is going to play a factor. I think it will influence them. Look, President Trump understands that China needs consensus. And what he's been doing is going around China and doing deals with lots of Asian nations. That's what he did in the Middle East against Iran. Remember his first trip to the Middle East? He met with the Saudis, UAE. He went to all, Qatar. He went to all of these regions and then went into Iran and knocked out their nuclear capabilities. So it's a similar fight here where you've got China being a bad actor. President Trump is going around China and doing all these other deals. So I think it will pressure China, and China needs the American consumer. That's what President Trump is counting on.
Talk about interest rates. He's been hitting the Fed chair really hard.
He really has.
Here it was yet again. Too late, Powell's done it again. He is too late and actually too angry, too stupid, and too political to have the job of Fed chair. He's costing our country trillions of dollars. In addition, one of the most incompetent or corrupt renovations of a building in the history of construction. Put another way, too late is a total loser, and our country is paying the price. So he's not letting up. They kept the rates where they are, but they had two dissenters on the Fed for the first time, I think, in 35 years.
Yeah, that's right. Since 1993. It tells you, well, first of all, Mickey Bowman was just put in place, and she is seen as a conservative. So she agrees with President Trump's policy. Christopher Waller is on a short list to be the next Fed chairman. I expected that those two would be dissenters. But what you have going on right now are a lot of people, even beyond the Fed board, a lot of people questioning what exactly is Chairman Powell's policy? What is his whole agenda here? Because he keeps saying he's going to wait for tariffs to cause inflation. It's not happening, Bill. Okay. Scott Besson told me the other day when I had him on that already they have achieved $100 billion in revenue from tariffs, and they're going to $300 billion for the year. So he's bringing in all this revenue. It actually caused a budget surplus for the month of June, which nobody has seen since the last time President Trump was in the White House. So I think at some point you're going to see the Fed relent, and they're going to probably cut rates in September. But look, all this conversation about the Fed needs to be independent, and yes, I agree with that. The Federal Reserve needs to be independent, but it goes both ways. It's not just on the president to make sure things are independent. Why did Powell cut rates right before a presidential election? That's what I want to know. Did the economy really warrant a cut in interest rates right before a presidential election? So it goes both ways. Chairman Powell should not be political. A lot of people say he is. President Trump told me he thinks he has TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. I don't know.
That last move was in October prior to the big national.
Correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you think September. If it doesn't happen in September, and obviously there's a lot of people out there like myself that would like to refinance my mortgage, I would like those rates to come down. But if it doesn't happen, what is the downside? What happens to the economy?
Well, the president has been talking about the impact of the Fed's failure to cut rates, and he said that it costs the U.S. $335 or $350 billion for every point that the Fed is not cutting. And what he's talking about is the interest that we pay on the debt. Let's not forget that the higher the interest rates, the more money we have to pay to hold $37 trillion in debt. And that's where the president comes up with that $350 billion number. So, yes, if the Fed lowers interest rates and it ripples through other fixed income markets and takes rates down, then it will be an easier lift for the federal government to hold $36+ trillion in debt. And that's what the president's focused on. Fed Chairman Powell is saying, look, we have a mandate. Our mandate is employment and it's inflation. Well, doesn't holding the cost of debt impact growth and impact those two things as well? I would argue the Fed should be thinking about how much it costs. But then again, Congress never stops spending. So
that's
there's
true,
that.
too. Listen, the market's about the boom. The tech sector is going to go nuts today. What Meta and Microsoft reported yesterday after the close, those companies are doing really, really well.
Bill, we're in a melt up.
Yeah, we're melt up. Got it.
I'm Steve Ducey. And that's a fact. Meta and Microsoft is definitely going bonkers right now. I'm telling you guys, man, the next 3.5 years in the United States is going to be excellent. Okay. The stock market, whatever you want to do right now. I mean, if you love to invest in the stock market, then this is a great time. Matter of fact, you should have like a 10-year or 20-year plan in the stock market. I mean, that's what I would do, but you guys do what you want to do. This is not an advice. Okay. This is not an advice. All right. Well, we know that Kamala Harris is now running for governor of California. So I guess California has been unburdened by what could have been. Okay? They have been unburdened by what could have been. Okay? Shout out to Jet. Jet says, Howell got two different forms of TDS, Trump derangement syndrome and tariff derangement syndrome. Uh-oh. This is the first time I'm hearing tariff derangement syndrome. Jet. Here we go. The View.
I don't know if you guys heard, but The View tends to tilt left.
Oh,
but
no.
I always thought that, but I didn't see the stats.
So The View only has one view.
That's what I'm getting the bit.
It is the
and it's blurry.
Right. We're telling you this because there's a study that the Media Research Center conducted. They watched every episode from January 6th, right before the election, till July 25th. And they noticed something. There have not been no conservatives being interviewed, zero. But there have been 102 left-leaning guests. But zero conservatives.
I mean, just look at them. You got former President Joe Biden, Tammy Duckworth, John Fetterman, Michigan Governor Whitmer, Elizabeth Warren, Jasmine Crockett, Klobuchar. You got Pritzker, and Chuck Schumer, Wes Moore, and Hakeem Jeffries.
All right, good luck with that, guys. It's the least surprising stat ever. By the way, they used to be somewhat balanced. Remember, Barbara Walters started this to get some political points of view, no script, and just get a conversation going and let us know what women talk about when they're together.
Yep.
Right? And then what happened? It ends up being an angry Democratic show.
Well, and they're also not just these politicians. They're liberals in Hollywood that have been on The View in this year, in 2025, like Eva Longoria, Julianne Moore, Amber Ruffin, Wanda Sykes. There have been a lot of them.
Yep.
Well, so
Gloria Steinem.
So it's not just the fact that they're inviting the liberals. When there is a conservative there, or even one of their co-panels, because, there's always the one that they have. Most of the time it's a never-Trumper or someone that's in that seat. They're so nasty to the people of opposing views. They say that they have a couple of independents there, but they find a way to always agree with the Democrats.
Right.
It's not that Republicans don't want to come on the show, but when you go there, you've seen plenty of times where Whoopi Goldberg will walk off the set when someone of a opposing view joins the show.
Yeah.
All right, so remember when Joe Biden decided to show everyone that he still had his A game, even though he had lost in the election. Remember this great comment that went unchallenged that he gave at The View.
Why do you think the vice president lost, and were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised, not because I didn't think the vice president was the most qualified person to be president. I wasn't surprised because they went the route of the sexist route, the whole route. I mean, this is a woman, she's this, she's that. I mean, it really, I've never seen quite as successful and a consistent campaign undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country and a woman of mixed race.
Knowing what you know now, do you think you would have beat him?
Yeah, he still got 7 million fewer votes.
Yes.
There you go, okay? A lot of people didn't show up. Number one. Number two, they're very close in those toss-up states. It wasn't a slam dunk.
Yeah, he's clueless still. Obviously, he would have lost.
I just remember the multiple times during that interview that Jill Biden had to step in and correct. I mean, this guy was running the country. Was the first lady having to step in when he's handling negotiations? International.
Yes, you don't have to ask, bro. Jill was stepping in. Ain't nobody got to tell you nothing. Jill was stepping in. And she was proud to step in, okay? Tell you that much. Here we go. AOC.
Republican strategist Aaron McGuire. Aaron, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. So this is becoming a trend of Democrats trying to check in on these ICE facilities only to be turned away. All of this is, of course, to score political points. So who's winning the messaging war here?
When it comes to the messaging, Democrats are making an absolute mess of themselves. Hysterics and political theater are not going to persuade voters that Democrats are on the right side of the immigration argument in this country. These are the same Democrats who have espoused open borders, defund ICE. They have villainized and chastise members of Customs and Border Protection. And now all of a sudden they care about what's happening when it comes to immigration only because it involves enforcement. Instead, what Democrats should do is join with President Trump, who has secured the southern border of the United States, and start enforcing the laws and making the necessary changes so that our country is safer. Political theater does not help this country become more sovereign and safer and get these illegal immigrant criminals out. So who are Democrats siding with yet again? Illegal criminals, illegal immigrants, and not the American people. Democrats need to do their job. And apparently they can't read the rules either, because if they applied for a tour, they would have gotten one. This is a holding facility with possible criminals in there. Why do you think you can just show up and storm in? That's insane behavior, but that is the moniker of the Democrat Party.
Yeah, well, DHS is saying, yeah, just schedule a tour, give us a week's notice, and everything will be okay. So from Maryland to New York City we go, and the latest polling shows Zohran Mamdani, the Democrat candidate for mayor, is massively in the lead. The question, who would you vote for mayor? Mamdani received 50%. Cuomo, Sliwa, and Adams combined have less than that, with Mayor Eric Adams, the incumbent, with just at 7%, less than the Republican candidate. So there's a New York Times article titled "Anybody But Mamdani: 5 Groups Emerged to Raise Millions in Attack Funds." It goes on to say real estate titans and financiers are forming super PACs to try to defeat Zohran Mamdani. Some organizers say that they won't succeed unless Mayor Eric Adams or former Governor Andrew Cuomo drops out. So what do you think is going on here, Aaron? The thinking among some is that even with all the money in the world, Zohran Mamdani is going to win unless another candidate drops out, because right now all the other 3 are splitting the vote.
That's true. And this outside money could play an important factor because, as we've seen historically, television ads are still the best way in politics to deliver a message. So that kind of money going into a very expensive media market in New York City could help move voters. But even if Cuomo and Adams dropped out, that's still not enough of a coalescing to be able to beat Mamdani at this point. If you have a D next to your name in the state of New York, it's not very hard to lose. It's not very hard to lose. But Cuomo alienated himself here. He was the one who was chased out of office for saying that he was Italian when he was accused of sexual harassment. So New Yorkers said no to that. Good choice there. Eric Adams alienated himself from the city, and Democrats rejected him. But you can look in any city in the state of New York, and you will see a failed Democrat like you're going to see with Mamdani in New York City. You can look in Buffalo and Binghamton and Rochester and Albany. Democrats fail across the state, but this is what New York has decided with a uniparty. And this could lead to a political revolution. If Mamdani wins New York City and drives it into the ground with his socialist policies, that is an opportunity for a Republican governor to beat Hochul come the next election. Republicans can unite. Normal New Yorkers can unite and win this state back, but it's going to take a political revolution, and Mamdani might be the one to do it.
That could be a lose the battle, win the war type of scenario. Republican strategist Aaron McGuire, thank you for.
I think so too. I definitely think so too. This is what happened to America in 2021 when, of course, Joe Biden, I was about to say Jill Biden. Okay. Joe Biden won the election. And, after the 4 years, Americans were like, wait, nope. We're not doing this again for the next 4 years. And that's why, of course, coupled with the fact that everybody watched the debate last summer between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Of course, that was a disaster. That was hard to watch. So, that took him out. But they replaced him with Kamala Harris. And Americans were like, no, we're not going to do this. Okay, because this lady was with Joe Biden for the past 4 years. And now she's coming like she's separate from Joe Biden. Nah, man. We knew how we were leaving. We knew what the interest rate was during Trump administration. The first term, which was the 45th president of the United States at the time, mortgage rates was like what? 2%. You know what I mean? 2% gas was cheap, and everybody was blaming what happened in 2020, for that. But the fact is, he just had a great economy. He's a great businessman. Of course, he's failed multiple times, but that's how you learn. You fail, you know what not to do, and then you do the right things. Okay, that's how you gain experience. You do a bunch of BS, and then you realize, okay, this does not work. I'm a grown man now. I'm a changed person. Okay. So he's failed in, a lot of businesses. And of course, this is why he is a billionaire. This is why he has properties across the United States and around the world. So it takes a lot of hard work and, coupled with some failures. That's how you get to success in this world. And with that being said, God is the greatest. America is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. God made it so. Thank you for being here. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams and believe in Almighty God. God is the greatest. All right, people. It's not about being a Democrat. It's not about being a Republican. It's about being American. So it is country before party. All right. You are an American before you are a Democrat or a Republican. All right. Thank you for being here, everybody. Also, I got to give a shout out to our esteemed members. Shout out to Dr. Luke with the GOAT. Thank you so much for the super chat and for being here. God bless you. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Ringmaster. Shout out to Sandra. Shout out to Ingram. Thank you for being our esteemed members. And if you want to join the membership, it is $4.99. All you have to do is go to the channel and click join, and you can, take it from there. Also, I got to give a shout out to our moderators. Shout out to MVP Jet. God bless you, Jet. Jet has always been consistent, so I got to give a shout out to Jet MVP. Shout out to Mr. Busky. God bless you, the Bucket Master. Always been consistent as well, Mr. Busky. God bless you. Shout out to Terry Vinings, the Bama girl. God bless you. Rolling Tide. Okay, Roll Tide. Okay. Shout out to Enders. God bless you. Enders. What else? Who else? Okay. I don't know. C. Shelley. I don't know if she's here, but shout out to C. Shelley. Shout out to Corey B. And everybody else who is in here. You guys are awesome. Also, thank you to everybody who tuned in, who are just watching, or the new subscribers. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining the channel. Thank you for subscribing. CRXR, Johnny 5, Rain Promo. I don't know if they're here, but I'm just giving them a shout out. Derek, shout out to Derek as well. What else? Shout out to our veterans. Shout out to our military personnel. Without you guys, there would be no homeland. Shout out to law enforcement officers. Shout out to Ice Baby. Thank you for doing your duty. God bless you. Border patrols as well. God bless y'all. And shout out to everybody, man. Be nice, be kind. You never know what people are going through. Some people are just this close, okay? This close to losing it. So be nice to people. A lot of people are one check, okay? One paycheck away from being homeless. So be kind to people. If you can help, help. If you can't, pray for them. Also, put a smile on your face, man. Put a smile on your face. Put a smile on your face. Go outside, shake hands, smile with people, talk to people, introduce yourself. Life is short. Life is short. If you can, go outside, enjoy earth, enjoy what God has created, enjoy the creations of God, because a lot of people are in the hospital right now, grasping, fighting for their life, fighting to take a deep breath and can't even eat. Okay. So just know that. Okay. Know that if you're here, you're alive, you're healthy, you can move around, you are blessed. Be grateful for life. It's not just about politics. Okay. It's not just about you versus me or them versus us. No. stay united, all right? Stay united. And with that being said, God is the greatest. God bless you. God bless America. It is your boy, Genesis. It is currently 3:02 p.m. And of course, today's date is the 31st of July, 2025. It is Thursday. And God is the greatest. All right, God is the greatest. One more time, it is your boy Genesis, and you are currently tuned in to The Genesis Show. And I am signing out.